Okay, so super. Who's the that was that South Park?
Oh,
That,
super. Thanks for asking. That's Big
yeah,
Gay Al.
Big Gay Al. Super. Thanks for asking. Yeah, well, this is Alex S. Johnson, aka Kandy Fontaine, and I run Nocturnicorn Books, and I'll try to keep this compact, but we're the home of literary and literal rock stars. What I mean by rock stars, well, literal rock stars such as David J. Haskins, the songwriter of a little tune called If You Guessed Bela Lugosi's Dead, you would be correct, is one of our authors. Jarbo from Swans, known for, you know, also her collaborations with people like Justin Broderick, J.K. Broderick, um, from Godflesh and Phil Anselmo and just like everybody, right? Attila Chihar from Mayhem. And then we got John Shirley, who when he's not writing songs for a little band called Blue Oyster Cult, he's writing movies like The Crow. Okay, so those are a few of our actual authors. You couldn't make this shit up. And
Yeah,
recently acquired, got on board Gary A. Brownbeck, seven-time Bram Stoker award-winning author. We also have Poppy Z. Bright, Caitlin R. Kiernan, and Jeffrey Thomas. So I'm very, very proud of having these people. Many of them are very, very long-standing friends of mine, and Iris Berry as well from Ringling Sisters, Punk Hostage Press, Lame Flames, and Pink Sabbath is also a dear friend of mine and on board with our press. So welcome to Nicholas Grabowski. And Nicholas Grabowski is a hyphenate. Um, he's he's a fellow Sacramentan. We were born, I think, like I'm terrible at math, but like 5 months apart, 1966. And so I'm just going to read this little thing. And if you correct me if you hear anything that's like, what? Okay, so
sure.
Nicholas Grabowski is a Sacramento-based American horror author, screenwriter, editor, and independent publisher whose career spans more than 35 years. Not too shabby. He is best known for his 1988 best-selling novelization of Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, written under the pseudonym Nicholas Randers, which cemented his reputation in the horror community. Grabowski's early bibliography includes, and again, if any of these names you're like, what? I didn't write that. Prey, Serpent's Prey, The Ragman, Sweet Dreams, Lady Moon, and Tale of the Makeshift Fair, as well as this is super interesting. Romance self-help titles under the pseudonym Marcina Shane. His epic dark fantasy novel, The Everborn, won the American Authors Association Science Fiction Novel of the Year Award in 2004. He has worked across multiple creative disciplines, screenwriting, including a commission treatment for a sequel to Wes Craven's Shocker, graphic novels, songwriting, and acting with minor roles in Night of the Creeps, 1986, and Master of the Universe, 1987. 2002, Grabowski founded Diverse Media, which evolved into Black Bedsheet Books. I'm dying to learn the origin story there. A Sacramento-based independent press specializing in horror, fantasy, and science fiction. The press is known for championing emerging authors, fostering small press culture, and maintain a strong presence at conventions and festivals. Notable endorsements. Grabowski's work has earned praise from major figures in horror, including Clive Barker. Clive Barker offered praise for Grabowski's writing and contributions to the genre, calling his work bold and uncompromising in its imaginative reach. Wes Craven praised Grabowski's storytelling instincts and his Halloween 4 novelization, noting its intensity and cinematic clarity. He continues to write novels, screenplays, comics, and sequels to The Everborn, expanding Black Bedsheets books catalog and mentoring new voices in horror. So welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So you started out writing under pseudonyms. I'm very, very curious how that why that um happened and particularly Marcina Shane. Who's Marcina Shane? I mean, do you like when you're writing under pseudonyms, do you and this is even more interesting, you know, writing under a female pseudonym, how did that affect your writing?
Oh, well, wow. Well, actually, um, in the beginning, when I first got published in 1988 with Prey Serpent's Prey, I wanted to be known as Nicholas Randers.
Okay.
I didn't think Grabowski would go over very well. Too long. I mean, I've encountered people that say, "How do you pronounce that?" And really, when you think about it, it's easy. It's like three syllables, but it's not
Right.
like Schwarzenegger or something. But Prey Serpent's Prey, my first novel,
Mhm.
1988. That was a Nicholas Randers book. But then when I got the gig for the Halloween 4 book, without my permission, they released it under Nicholas Grabowski, and I was
Oh.
a little bit pissed off at first. And then I thought that that was kind of a blessing in disguise, so I kind of let it go because now, I kind of figured, especially in hindsight, but what was going on at the time, it was hard for me to prove to people that I was actually published with the Randers name, and they're going, "Oh, let's see your driver's license." So with Halloween 4, which was a bigger novel, of course, my name was on the cover, and people would like in bars saying, "Oh yeah, right, you wrote that. Let's see your driver's license." And oh, it is Grabowski, huh? So it kind of
Yeah.
worked out. With the Marcina Shane thing, my publisher at Critics' Choice Paperbacks, which did the first two, they I did what I probably shouldn't have done, and what people kind of do when they think that they just got published and they've got it made. I quit my job as a security guard,
Oh, wow.
figuring that I got it made now,
Right.
and it turned out that I still needed the money, so the publisher would reach out for me with work for hire stuff. And he
Yeah.
said, "How are you at doing romance novels?" And I said, "Well, I mean, I can try. Yeah, we'll pay you $500 a pop." Um, but the thing is, romance novels only sell if the readers are convinced that it's written by a female.
Oh, nice.
So I, uh, I think I looked in an almanac or something, closed my eyes, and pointed at stuff and wrote down a list. And Marcina Shane turned out to be the snappiest. And so I started writing for Critics' Choice under that name, Marcina Shane, with some romance novels. Then they asked me to do a Nancy Reagan biography, which like somebody in teacher in school in English class telling you to write something that you're not interested in. But I got paid $1,000 to do
Nice.
that. And so I did that, and I ended up doing some romance books like Sweet Dreams, Lady Moon, and then and June Park, and then
Oh, June
they got
Park. Well, that was who was the director there on June Park?
Oh, no, it wasn't made into a movie or anything, but
Oh,
that does sound like it could have been a movie
oh yeah, okay.
by somebody else. I mean, names, I don't know, but and then they got me to do physical fitness books. Great
Oh,
legs, 6 weeks. So I had to
nice.
go to libraries. They even sent me a bunch of stuff in the mail, like a bunch of other books about fitness and legs and stuff. So I did my research and fashioned my own book, and then Your Heart Belongs to You, which is a book about heart health that I wrote in the early 90s, around the time that I did the Shocker 2 treatment and stuff,
Wow.
and some other things. Recently, after I almost died over the holidays in the hospital, and I came back and I had to learn how to walk again and the
Oh
whole
my
9 yards.
gosh.
I just I got this thing in me where I just felt like I had to go back, and to like Marcina Shane books, with none of which I could find online at all, and revive her and revive some other half-written stuff and things. And I went
Interesting.
on a tangent. So I redid and revived all the old Marcina Shane stuff. I got the Nancy Reagan book out, retitled.
Nice.
I got the physical fitness ones. uh, Your Heart Belongs to You, and instead of Great Legs in 6 weeks, I changed it because I just couldn't wrap my head around 6 weeks you can have Great Legs. So
So that was too soon or not enough?
it's
Or
too soon. I mean, 6 weeks. I don't know.
what
It
what
probably
what
requires
what
a long
constitutes great legs? I mean, is that like aesthetic or strength or
aesthetic.
okay,
Basically, if you want
so
to look good in public and have great legs to flaunt,
is it
um,
is it like is it weird that you're writing for women and you're talking about great legs or is it
it's weird, but I'm used to it now, especially this time around.
yeah,
When I went back to, I kind of re-edited Sweet Dreams Lady Moon. I
wow.
put a forward in it. What's it like being Marcina Shane? And then the other books, June, when I started tackling June Park again and reworking it and put it out, I had this idea to make it a series. And
Oh,
I had this idea of really writing like a woman would write, putting myself
interesting.
in their shoes and have a target audience. And I developed a series called Romantic Planets, which so far
Interesting.
it took me like only a few months to write four novellas on it. So there's June Park, there's The Martian Coal Miner, um, there's the Jupiter Possums, and Lizard in a
Wait,
Mud.
wait, Jupiter possums?
Yeah, the Jupiter Possums. I
Okay,
haven't
so
started like right.
they're okay, so
They're
they're is it science fiction or is it
It's mostly science fiction, but it has a romance kind of a feel to it.
interesting?
These books, I'm going to write more. These books, they basically have to do with um, a guy and a girl meeting somehow. Usually, the woman is either divorced or she has a bad relationship or something like that. So that's part of the formula. But usually, the guy um, turns out to be from another planet in the solar system. So
Oh
each one
wow.
is focused on a planet, and each one is also focused on a certain type of animal. Like the Martian coal miner has
Oh,
canaries, canary in a coal mine, and he has this telepathic ability to control canaries. And then in the Jupiter possums, a lady who's living in East Anaheim in 1985, behind a grocery store. She's kind of lonely, but she makes friends with some possums, particularly one in her backyard. And
wow.
then a meteor shower happens. Turns out to be these souls of these possum-like creatures from Jupiter.
Oh,
It merges with the soul of her husband, which, unbeknownst to her, his ghost has been hanging around the house. She didn't
oh,
know.
I see.
Well, it
So
merged him and the possum. So,
possums
and the
from
possums turn out to be
Jupiter.
like maybe 4 feet tall.
Do they reconnect? Do they rekindle their
In a
love?
way,
Because
I'm very careful. I didn't want them to go to bed or anything like that. I had to. These books are for all
well,
ages.
I mean,
Also, mostly for they're designed to appeal to women and girls, but
right.
they're for everybody. And there's no swearing really in it. No
Okay, so
real violence and stuff. The Martian coal miner does have like his telekinetic abilities, like kill off one of the characters with flying knives and
oh
things
wow.
um, in a butcher like environment. But so it's kind of hard being a horror writer and suppressing entirely that. Yeah, I've really kept it really good. I debuted them at the Sinister Creature Con
Oh
in June,
wow. Nice.
and they went over very well, especially Jupiter possums,
Jupiter
because
possums.
everybody loves possums.
It's such an intriguing concept. No, it just like it's so cool that you get to like explore some of these really interesting kind of speculative fiction ideas as well as writing romance. Recently, like, okay, so Jeff Vandermeer, right? He does this ecology show, and he has this possum that he discovered in his backwoods that he named Tater Bean. Now, for years and years, I was like wondering, like Caitlin or Kiernan always signs off her, her her letters like, later tater beans, or actually I think it's the Live Journal, right? Later tater beans. So I one day I was just like, hey, Caitlin, what's up with the tater beans? Is that like, and growing up in Birmingham, is like this that like that you ate a lot of tater beans? She said, well, it's actually Jeff Vandermeer's possum. And so it was like super intriguing, right? So like it's so cute.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm into cute animals too. I'm a big fan of hamsters.
Hamster, oh my
And
God.
hamsters and Marcina Shane. Marcina Shane's latest book that I just came out with last week is a biography. A guy named Friedrich Gabriel Sulzer.
Hmm.
He lived in the late 1700s. He was a physician, a renowned physician in Europe,
Wow.
but he's known for studying the European hamster, and he did a whole book all about the European hamster, uh, uh, from their habitats, what they do, from um, uh, their their organs, how they work, this and that, their cheek pouches and everything. Since I'm into hamsters, I got into him about 20 years ago, and nobody's heard of him. I mean, his hamster book
Hmm.
um, has been out for a while, not too long. That was kind of recently rediscovered. That he wrote around 1800 or
Yeah.
1774, I think. But and it's only in German. So I figured, you know what? I'm into this guy. I even put a Facebook page about him. Friedrich has a Facebook page on it that's about 15 years old now. So I figured I'll put all my research together and gather more resources and do a biography of him. And it's called Hamster Man. Uh,
Wow.
and
That's
it
so cool.
animal rights activists would really eat this thing up because he was the original animal rights activist. He, because of
Oh my
writing
God.
about hamsters and nature and going out and studying geology and
That's a,
hearing from people and stuff,
what years? What is he active or
he was
doing this?
active in the late 1700s, early
That's
1800s.
18th century. So right about the time like Goethe was writing a lot of sort of,
Yeah, yeah. There were
work in
other
that
doctors like
era.
he was really compassionate. He treated rich people just like he did poor people.
Right. Yeah.
He had a midwifery school,
Interesting.
and he was hired by a lot of aristocrats to like he was in charge of these what do you call it? These natural springs, these spas that
Fascinating.
rich people would go to and stuff. But he was all about animal rights, and he discovered and he put it in his hamster book, and I emphasize it in the
Yeah.
biography I wrote of him about how all animals have souls. What right do we have
Nice.
to determine whether or not they do? Just because they're not exactly like us, if you open us up, it's almost
Right.
the same thing inside if
Exactly.
you open them up. And they have social environments. They
Right.
have uh,
Language.
it's
Uh,
not they're not just mechanical like animals that just live
right.
and die
Well,
with no
that
emotion.
was like
And he made a
Descartes,
point to
right?
that. Yeah,
Descartes had that idea that animals were kind of like these clockwork mechanisms. They didn't feel anything. It was that total bullshit. Yeah,
yeah.
you really hurt a lot of, but then so I'm going to conscript you. I mean, I'm not sure if you saw one of my books, that actually, me and my collaborator Nicole Six, came up with. Actually, it was her idea. It's called a
Oh,
collective paw.
This is a
You know?
reminder.
I'm
Honey
sorry about
Bear
this.
230.
It's 2:30. Um, I guess we got to let that run its course for a second if you can
Yeah.
hear
Yeah, that's cool.
it's my Alexa.
This is a reminder. Honey Bear 230.
And
Okay, yeah. It's no worse.
2:30
Francie,
is in
here is your
like your
reminder.
tooth hurts.
Francie
Okay,
Nick, don't
2:30.
forget to give the kitty the
And
treats.
then this too. I let Alexa do that at
okay,
every
that's great.
2:30 because Francie programmed it in
Okay, cool.
and she
Yeah,
Francie,
got
wow.
here
so
is
it
your
reminds
reminder.
me of her.
Francie
It'll
Nick,
be
don't
over in a
forget to give
second.
the kitty the treats.
Kitty the
Oh,
treats.
that's so cool. So, I mean, speaking of which, this is so remarkable and almost uncanny, but a lot of things in my life are that this way. I've been working with Nicole about, let's say, a year and a half, and she's a very beautiful person. She's an alumnus of Weird Tales and has worked with Jonathan Mayberry and Mick Garris, and she's an actress and just a and poet and author and very kind person. She works with this I think it's called Stray Cat Alliance in LA, right? And
Oh,
so I have this dear friend named Ellen Mabey. People don't know about her. I always say, well, if you've heard of, Henry Rollins, if you've heard of Exene Cervenka, if you've heard of, Jackson Brown, they are all fans of hers. And she just wrote this poem um, that contains the phrase "a collective paw," and it's sort of like so there's something in the collective paw, right? And
uh-huh.
my partner Aaliyah and I were watching this video, and I was like, we were both sort of struck by how magical that was, how because Aaliyah, loves animals too. Um, I mean, how could you not? So I thought then and there, I think I will. It was sort of like it catalyzed a whole lot of things in my that I was working towards. Like I wanted to have an imprint title that represented to me more than humanitarian concerns because I really believe in all beings activism. I believe in, that in Gaia, and I believe that and that we need to get beyond speciesism and even earthism, and so I had my designer Adrian Baldwin in England come up with this the a collective paw, the imprint, and the
Oh,
imprint
yeah, yeah.
logo, right? And so
Uh-huh.
and so then I got a call from Nicole, and she's like, "Hey, I want to contribute." And I was like, "Well, what do you want to do and to what?" And she said, "Do collective paw." And I was like, um, it's more an imprint." And she said, "Yeah, but I really can we do a book?" And one thing led to another, and we had uh, Ellen and my lovely partner Aaliyah Celeste Williams, aka Pickles, and some other friend Nicole, and we all kind of conspired to do a collective paw an animal rights anthology, and we even did the Pawsy Awards, and
Uh-huh.
we had people like Emily Frank, Ron Whitehead was on our show. We did sort of like, for like not only cultural contributions, but also humanitarian work. And it was really, really very moving. And so we put out the first volume. I'll try to see if I can find a copy of it. If I can't find it just right in my immediate vicinity, I'll tell you some of the people are on board, like Jeffrey Thomas, Billy Martin, Kate Kiernan. We had some newer authors, and I think Prakash Satyamurthy was in that book, and Clancy Nocht and Mia Dahlia, and it's really, really awesome. So we're going to put out another volume. I was actually planning that with Nicole and Rissa Miller, who's another actually, and he's worked with the Baltimore Sun, I think, but she's a journalist as well. And it's the basically idea is that it's for for animal rights organizations, but as well as really kind of sort of furthering my William Blake vision of a unified, you know, ecosystem where we're not above anybody. We're not like sitting in superior um, judgment of what beings have a right to exist or not. I look at
Right.
I'll see an insect, I see a praying mantis, or I see whatever wandering, or an aphid or something, I'll be like, oh, you got it right. You got it right, man. And maybe I'm just a hippie or something, but I just like, you're a life and here. And I think Nietzsche used to talk about, let's see, the sort of the very poignant story about, how he sort of lost it when he saw somebody, whipping his horse in Turin, Italy, and that was la his last moment, where he was really lost his grasp of reality. He was so, distraught, right? This guy was beating his horse. I was like, shit, man, I don't know
Mhm.
about that. And so I think, Nietzsche had that whole idea of the will to power, which has been completely distorted by the Nazis and Elizabeth Förster Nietzsche, who was a Nazi. And but I think that the whole my take on the will to power is every everything wants a chance. You still want a chance to audition, right? To be a star, right? It's like whether
Right.
you're a microbe,
Or just live.
just live, man. Just, you know, come
Yeah.
on, come on down. And I think I was at the Smith, it was the Natural History Museum in Washington, and I was visiting a friend, and I was really struck by the fossil record. Like evolution is really interesting because there's been all sorts of like evolutionary dead ends, but it's sort of like the imagination of, John Skip once talked about like dreams in the mind of God, and all these forms, coming into play and having their chance to audition. Their giant birds were pretty powerful and strutting around for millions of years. It's like, yeah, man, we're the shit. Before that, it was like, remember it was the Udikarian or something, the Udikarian era was it was just like the warm world.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm talking about? Like there was a whole era in Earth's history where there was just nothing but fucking worms.
Yep.
And Kate Kiernan has the whole, the deep time um concept, which as I mean, whether it applies to Lovecraftian horror or whether or just thinking about, you know, things like microevolution is also very fascinating to me, these little microbursts where all of a sudden, instead of, I think the old idea was, basically sort of much more linear developments. And instead, I don't remember when this came around, like in the 80s or so, but it was like, remember, um, and then they shifted the paradigm to more like rapid bursts. All of a sudden, you have these accelerated pace of evolution and it's throwing off forms left and right, and it's like riffing, like,
Yeah.
okay, man, it's like, let's see it. Also, you got things like cryptids. Do you want to talk about
Oh.
cryptids?
Oh,
I-
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. At
I
first, I thought you meant Superman's dog, but that's
oh,
crypto.
yeah. Well, that's, yeah.
Yeah, cryptids. Yeah, yeah.
Cryptids.
I like I in the Everborn in the introduction, I talk a lot about stuff like UFOs and Bigfoot
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Certain things that happen to be mysteries, especially like in the animal kingdom when you talk about cryptids and stuff like the Chupacabra and stuff like that. I just can't grasp how. I mean, okay. I mean, there's not one in a zoo. Nobody's actually taken a real photo that everybody can agree on that
Uh-huh.
that's the thing, the creature. So they are mysterious, but it's always like um, fascinated me how people can't wrap their head around the possibility that some of these things exist.
Right?
Because when you look at it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just that they're elusive, and people go, "Oh, Bigfoot, that's just a big fantasy and stuff like that." But something that looks like an ape that's crossed between a hairy human and an ape, or something that
Right.
lives in the forest. I mean, there's been creatures that actually did exist that were fantastical.
Right.
Why? And there's creatures that we take for granted now, like the platypus.
Right.
You saw
Yeah.
like that.
how
Where
dare
I mean,
they? You know what I mean? Like,
that they're real. So why can't
right.
these be real? Why can't
Why
a
can't they be
real like
real?
sea creature live in Loch Ness that's left over
Right.
from back in the day, or
Yeah.
it's something like that? It's not fantastical to assume that they do exist. We just haven't really found it, or there's
Right.
no proof, or stuff like that. But the mystery is what intrigues everybody about it. But I mean, they could or could not be true. I mean, like I said, we take advantage of the wild stuff that we know exists. I mean, why can't any of these, or all of them, any of them? I
Well,
mean, there's such a thing
yeah.
that as modern mythology, where somebody sees something they can't explain. They tell somebody else. They tell somebody else. The story gets blown out of
Right.
proportion.
Right.
The details get blown out of proportion, and it becomes a modern myth.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's a thing that as a horror writer, any horror writer would like. I I imagine would be drawn to
Sure.
that kind of subject matter when they're writing horror too. I mean, the mystery of these creatures.
Right. The mystery
And
of
I'm into, as a horror writer, I'm into creatures of
yeah,
mine
me too, man. So
more than
like
anything.
a lot of my characters are actually animals. Like I started out in what is it, 2014 or 2015. I put out a limited edition chapbook through Dynatox Ministries, Jordan Crawl, and it was called The Doom Hippies. And I've since expanded it and I rewrote it a couple of times and I did the cover art. So this is me, my cover design, cover art,
Oh,
and
cool.
thank you. And it's actually, believe it or not, this book is one of two books that's archived at, well, I'll tell you this story because this is relates to Jeffrey Thomas. Okay, so Jeff Thomas, um, dear friend, and he wrote the foreword to my last Doom Hippies collection. Thank you, Jeffrey. And so so as you know, he has a brother, Scott Thomas, who also writes, dark fiction. And he's actually I discovered Jeff because I'm old longtime friend with Kate Kiernan, and I was looking for some of her videos, and I found this reading that they did together, Scott, Kate, and Jeffrey in Providence, right? I think Caitlin was living in Providence at the time. And so anyway, long story short, we became pals over Facebook. And was it last year? It may have been, yeah, it was probably last year. I shared this trans director and author made a film, a short subject film of Jeff's short story called After the Fall, which I highly recommend that story of the film, and which has to do with this community that discovered that there are these that looks like this dead crustaceans hanging in like this the air. They might be from another dimension. They might be dead. They might be not dead. They might be undead. They might be, you know, there or not there at the same time. And it's kind of like a litmus test or a Rorschach test of what this community thinks about, life and death and mortality and all this. It's a fascinating and funny and moving story. And so anyway, I shared the poster as a was that a poster for the short film After the Fall. And I got a message from Craig K. Thomas, who's Jeff's brother. And I was like, wow. And he said, thanks for sharing, Jeff's movie. And I was like, well, you're welcome, Craig K. Thomas. I was like, cool. I said, you're a Thomas, right? Do you write stuff? He says, I'm a librarian. I said, oh, okay. So, and I'm thinking, well, I don't know why, because I love libraries. I used to work at a library, and I wasn't really thinking about. I just thinking, well, support your local library because then you can learn about possums and whatever. and all sorts of creatures. And I said, "Oh yeah, where do you work?" He says, "Harvard." And I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Wow, so you work at Harvard?" And he says, "Yeah, I work for the." It turns out he's the guy literally the gatekeeper of all books that are at Harvard. Like any book that's in their library system goes through him first. He selects it. And so, and he says, "Do you have any books that you want, you know, like us to stock in our collections?" And I'm like, "Okay, am I hallucinating here, man?" It's like, wow. He said, "Yeah, just," I said, "Well, people seem to like the Doom hippies."
Mm.
And so I was like, because it has stories like Rinaldo, the world's smallest circus bear. Um, it's got a lot of animal animal related stories. And let's see, which the pig story, Ronaldo. There's a lot of what was the last orgy of the gingerbread men. That was a fun one. Anyway, so and he said, "Yeah, sure, send that over, sign it over, this donate to Harvard University," and had another book. And anyway, but Ronaldo, the world's smallest circus bear, made his debut in the Doom Hippies. And he starts out as a very kind of a ambivalent, almost an outlaw, almost like a dangerous, kind of a transgressive anti-hero. But he's kind of metamorphosed into had all kinds of adventures, a CIA agent, and I don't know where I'm going with this, but I love
Right.
writing animals. I've got these characters called Stormcrow, who controls weather, and Death Cat, who can raise the dead. And so I'm there with you, and as far as animal characters.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that people have been telling me that I have to do, and I'm going to get around to doing it. It'll probably be part of the Romantic Planets thing with Marcina Shane. Is a book that involves hamsters, and because I mean, for years, I've developed this mythology, and friends of mine that come over and stuff, they know that hamsters say woo.
Hmm.
That's their favorite word is woo.
Yeah,
And so, for years, friends of mine and me, we would greet each other saying woo,
right.
woo, and hamsters say woo, and then they come from the planet Woo, which they're a highly advanced civilization, and they also have their own superhero called Hamsterfish,
Nice.
which is merged. He's a hamster merged with the fish, and
Naturally.
that gave him magical qualities where he can even grant wishes. And he has a little sidekick called Microfish that
Nice.
uh, that can actually he records things through his eyes and he can play them back on a projector
Oh yeah, man. So
and
okay,
stuff. And I was
where can
thinking,
where can people get these? Because I need this in my life.
yeah, I gotta write it.
Oh, you need it. You need to write
Yeah,
it first. Yeah.
and I think that the Friedrich Gabriel Sulzer Hamsterman biography kind of helps me go in that direction.
Yeah.
And so, but it's a fantasy, and I think that I'm going to have a character in it that's Friedrich Gabriel Sulzer that travels in time and meets
Nice.
this girl, and they have an adventure on the planet Wu,
Nice.
the whole thing. So I
So,
think I'm going
yeah,
to.
wow.
It's a fantastical, kind of off the beaten path with horror, but more on the lines of fantastic. I mean, romantic planets.
Yeah.
So
So one of I forget, he was the president of the Horror Writers Association. Forget his name, but he did the Revenge of the Fuzzy Bunnies or something, the whole series about the Fuzzy Bunnies.
Oh, you're not talking about the vampire bunny Bunnicula, are you?
No, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
that's cool too. And then you had
Yeah.
H. Piper. What's that guy? Um, you know, H. Beam Piper or something like that did some fuzzies. I think.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that movie with what's his name from Star Trek, the who played Bones McCoy. Forgot his name all of a sudden, but yeah, he was in a early '70s movie about giant rabbits. Remember
Yes.
that? I think Night of the Lupus. I think.
Yes, Night of it was the Night of the Lepus. And actually I learned about it. Did you read about that in Stephen King? Because the Danse Macabre, because I think he devotes like an entire chapter to it because because it's so fucking weird. The
Oh,
yeah,
huh. Yeah, I did read that, but that was a long time ago.
yeah. This
Ah,
is yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, I'm definitely gonna conscript you because we're gonna do another. I mean, when I say we, I mean me. But I want to I keep sort of like having these great like specialties. Like we put out these books that at I mean at the very least they attract a lot of major name talents who want to be on board with us. And, so I don't know about sales so much, but it's just I think people are drawn to, wanting to be in the books because they're sort of like books that you wish existed. And I actually put them together, right? Like a collective pause, just so pausey. And it's just
Collective
so,
pause.
you know what I mean?
Pause.
The pause that
Pardon the
refreshes.
pun. Yeah, yeah.
And so and it's just it also another thing that's really beautiful about what I do is that you have a lot of people who come from it's not just horror writers because I mean from the beginnings I've worked with all sorts of people and a lot of beat poet people and Ellen Mabey certainly has her kind of she and a lot of my friends are this book called The Outlaw Bible of American Poetry, right? So Ellen and Iris Berry, Mark Olmsted, and Dominic Lowell is no longer with us. And that had like Burroughs, Acker, Patti Smith, you name it, Leonard Cohen. I mean, it's a really amazing book. It's about like this, it's this thick. And so we got beat poets, we got um all kinds of people. We got, Are You Serious from Mondo 2000 is one of our people
Ah,
on board with Nocturnicorn Books. And he's amazing. He's really brilliant guy. So very proud to be working with Ken Goffman. I'm kind of meandering, but this is all I mean to say is that, when I started out like writing when I was a little kid, and then my dad wrote a lot of stuff for the Whole Earth Review, which was a spin-off from Whole Earth Catalog. And so he took me to see Allen Ginsberg, at a very, very impressionable age. I was like 14 years old. And I also met R. Crumb like the same day. And I was like, holy shit, I don't know what this guy is like. Is this, this is poetry, but it's like rock and roll. And I was sold. I was like, that kind of, reading Stephen King and Peter Straub too was another and listening to a lot of music, a lot of the Who, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, um, Scorpions, all these Black Sabbath, all these bands, they were kind of set that they got into my cells. And they really also, I think, with bands like Black Sabbath, they were the only people who were talking about things that mattered to me. Because remember, we're the same age, so we grew up under the shadow of the the like we were certain that it was going to be just like Children of the Grave, right? Just like every day, it
yeah.
was like, when is the bomb going to, are we going to go, toe to toe with the Ruskies like any day now. And we had that the guy, the Secretary of the Interior, James Watt, who was a end times like true believer, and he thought that the final war for the heart and soul of human humanity was going to be waged, and it was literal Armageddon, and he was kind of looking forward to it. Is this like these weirdos? And
Yeah.
now the weirdos in charge now make those guys look like level-headed, and
Oh
responsible.
yeah. Do you remember Harold Camping?
No?
It was in like my parents were huge fans. They actually moved up here from Anaheim, retired up here to be closer to his church, which was in the Bay Area. But he he had all these end times. He was obsessed with mathematics and the end times and Jesus coming back. And he believed that he knew exactly. And this wasn't the first time, but this is the most famous time. I
Right.
think it was in 2010
Yeah.
or something. But if you remember, in May, a certain day in May, Jesus was going to return, and a lot of his followers all over the world, they gave up their jobs, they gave up their money, and sold their
Yeah.
houses and everything. And my parents, he said that Jesus is coming back. There's going to be a war after Jesus is going. The rapture is going to happen and everything.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in my parents' living room visiting them that night, and they were afraid. And
Wow.
they were watching Harold Camping on TV because he had a TV show thing, and and they were like really afraid, and it never happened. And so people were like flooding his front yard the next day to find answers about what happened, and he wouldn't answer the door. And he eventually died. He died that year too, without Jesus saving him. And I kind of figured because I used to be a preacher. I grew up in church, and
Wow.
I was a preacher, young preacher, right out of high school.
Interesting.
And I always got the feeling that people that and it's not for everybody, but I mean, most of the people that are obsessed with the end times and about Jesus coming back and all that, which I believe that to an extent. I still am a Christian, but I'm a weird Christian. But they it seems to me like they have a hard time confronting their own deaths. So they think that that's a loophole to look forward to. I don't have to die. I mean, how many times did I go to church in the 80s, especially Pentecostal churches,
Yeah.
where people would like speak in tongues and the interpreter would say, I am coming maybe tomorrow,
Right.
maybe, the next month or something. And it's like a loophole to make them feel better about themselves that they don't have to die.
Right.
But the fact is, they do die
They do die.
anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, I went on that rant, but that kind of hit home though with the whole
Yeah.
Harold camping thing and all that.
Yeah. I think that's really true, and it does point to something that's absolutely fundamental and important, I think, about, horror. Although I never considered myself to be a horror writer, because I'm like, when I was in high school, some of my favorite authors were like Douglas Adams and Robert Aspirin. And, it was always like funny science fiction. I really love that kind of stuff. I still do. I mean, the Hitchhiker's Guide and Monty
Oh,
Python,
hitchhikers.
right? It's just so much fun. So, like my work is it's always got some humor in it. I mean, it's meant to be like, even the darkest stuff is really, there's always a lot of just, you know, it's almost like it's so dark that it becomes like, what, as you start, just losing it, because it's like Lucy Taylor's gave me one of my favorite blurbs. It's just like, you know, Wicked Candy is shocking, perverse, and, at times funny as hell. Like, oh, bless you,
Uh,
Lucy Taylor, right? That's just that's exactly what I want to, what do you want to get, like, like, to the extent that we have a sort of a kind of a program, to what kind of emotions do you want to elicit from your readers?
well, fear and suspense, but I always inject humor, especially
Yeah,
dark humor.
yeah,
Um, Kind of like writing as if Oh, what's his name in Pet Cemetery? But that was Herman Munster. I forgot his
Yeah,
name.
the guy, Fred Gwynn.
Yeah, like something like
The
some,
ground is
what
sour.
an old man would like say.
Right.
A
Yeah.
learned old man with a sense of humor.
Yeah.
He's been through life enough that he's been around the block and he just tells it like it is. But
Yeah.
some of the humor is sick and twisted. That's kind of my writing style.
Yeah.
Um, is from kind of like that point of view.
Yeah.
And with it, Marcina Shane and everything aside, my writing style, it's got swear words and it's got
Yeah.
it's a matter of fact stuff and this the way it is and I look at irony and people's personalities and how they act and interact
Yeah.
and it's kind of from a psychological point of view. Um, it kind of fascinates me to especially make up characters, but most of everything I write, kind of like Taylor Swift does, you write what you know. So
Right.
it's always like based on some kind of a something that I've experienced or some person I know,
Yeah.
or and then I just turn it into a fantasy.
Right.
But I think that it's kind of boring if you just write something strictly for scares with no tongue-in-cheek
Right.
irony, no sense of humor in a way,
Yeah.
because that's the way that people work. People respond better to that kind of a thing, and you know when to make them laugh,
Right.
you know when to scare them and
Right.
hold them in suspense, and the whole nine yards. And I've said this for years and years.
Yeah.
That's and it's not a secret, but I can call it the secret to writing is you have to take these elements and stuff that you know because you write what you know,
Right.
and stuff in fantasy and and conjure it up to get people's attention and to make them not just pay attention but to entertain them and
Yeah.
bring them into a world. So writing is an art. You can't just wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I'm going to be a writer now." It's a long, slow
It
process
really
to
is.
find your voice
Right.
and get things right
Yeah.
and stuff. That's and when I first got published with Prairie Serpent's Prey, I still hadn't found my voice. So I'm a little embarrassed with Prairie Serpent's Prey, but I'm proud of it
Yeah.
because of history and I love the story still. And
Right.
but the Everborn, I found my voice with
Well.
the whole nine yards, with the characterization, the sense of humor,
Hmm.
the plot, and I always kind of figured too when you're writing a story, one of the most satisfying things as a writer to do with a story is end it in full circle,
Yeah.
where everything comes together and has a legitimate ending
Right.
that turns out to be something that you've done from the beginning, and you go on a journey and then you end it
Right.
kind of the same way that you began, only with the resolution.
Right. Yeah. It's
Anyway, I
beautiful.
kind of went off on that, but
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like music, right?
yeah, like
And I mean,
creative.
if you think about like music theory where which gets into like things like tritones. So as soon as I think of an example of music theory, I think of the counterexamples that actually add that wonderful sense of dissonance or tension, when you have, things like tritones or intervals, the Diabolist in Musica, right? Which was used in everything from Purple Haze to The Simpsons to the Planets by Holst to Black Sabbath, famously, and also the Diamond Head song, right? Am I Evil? And uses the exact same interval that was it Holst used in the planets and Mars, right? Mars, the
Uh-huh.
bringer of war. It's the exact same thing. And I mean, I've interviewed people like Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse, explicitly talking about this for Metal Maniacs, and also talked to Chris Force from uh, from uh, Amber Asylum, and and almost identical descriptions because that it's like um was how's it that sort of classic. I mean, I've worked with musicians and I'm not, and I tried to be a musician, but I really suck. But but so you're probably better able to describe this, but what the was it extended fifth, I guess, is right, where you have oh, help me out. So you like this is a classic example is Purple Haze, right? Like
Yeah.
or Black Sabbath. Down, bah, bah, right? So you
Mhm.
go all the way up here and then you go down here, you know, but it's not resolved. And that's why there's that tension, and that's why the Devil's Interval was banned and in the medieval times, and it has actually caused a riot when the Rite of Spring by Stravinsky was debuted, right? It actually people were like, "What is this? What is this?" And the same exact kind of like those tritones, which is like the Rite of Spring or chum 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 chum, that became like composers like Bernard Herrmann used it, right? And that became
Oh,
like
yeah.
the Psycho theme, right?
Right. Yeah,
It's
I love Bernard. I'm really into um as if you can't tell, I don't know if you can see it, but I got part of my movie soundtrack collection here. I've been
oh
listening to
wow.
bands lately, but I'm a nut when it comes to movie soundtracks,
Me
film
too.
scores.
I
And
love
I
film
have a big
scores.
collection. I When I write or when I'm working on the computer, I got my turntable right here, and I collect and listen
Me
to
too. Me
vinyl
too.
soundtracks,
All the
mostly
time.
for science fiction and fantasy.
When I'm editing, I listen. Well, I used to, but I have this brain disease anyway. Long story, but when I used to edit my books, I would listen to a lot of Tangerine Dream, like the soundtracks to. And I was discovered
And
Tangerine
dream.
Dream when I was a kid, and the Sorcerer, right? The William Friedkin Sorcerer. Oh my God, Thief, and I would just love those. The soundtracks. I listen to the soundtracks, I collect the soundtracks. I've interviewed Simon Boswell and John Carpenter and Claudio Simonetti, right? They're all really,
Oh,
it's,
I love
you know what I
Goblin.
mean? Goblin
Yeah,
is so it was really interesting. It's like Carpenter really said that Simonetti and Goblin was probably the single biggest influence on Halloween, which kind of seems a little bit counterintuitive, but I mean his minimalist synth scores is very, very Goblin-esque.
yeah, very much, and it carried on throughout all of his other soundtracks to his movies that he did. Like I recently got Ghosts of Mars,
Yeah,
uh, and and he's great in it. He's got some really great a famous guitarist. I forgot his name. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, he does a lot of his own soundtracks,
I know.
and
I
I can
love it.
see the influence.
I, I,
Um,
s- I,
of
I recently saw for the first time I saw Assault on Precinct 13. What a masterpiece,
it.
right? That's so I mean he's a very, very I think he's one of those people who's so good, like King or Straub, who's so good that it's deceptive. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? Like
When he's
like
really, really good. And then there's Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
okay, so I've never
But no, but his horror stuff.
yeah,
And I didn't like Ghost of Mars at first when I saw it in the theaters, but I
yeah,
learned to really like it.
yeah.
And so it's that, and some of my favorite movies of all time are movies that I wasn't sure about at first, that I learned to like it, like Blade Runner. Uh,
Right.
uh, but yeah, so some of it you just have to absorb enough and listen
Right.
to enough, and then you become a real fan.
I
And
think
I think of that of John Carpenter's music.
right. And I think also Carpenter, visually speaking, he is one of the great masters of widescreen. Like I think he learned a lot from, people like Kurosawa, Sergio Leone, I mean he knows the compositions are just like the, very, very simple, and like Kurosawa, right? Like Seven Samurai or Throne of Blood. Another dear friend of mine, Anna Taborska in London, is a huge y- um, she's her films are very, very um inspired by, they're very Dario Argento, very very loves, those films, and also Ruggero Deodato, was it was I keep
Oh,
Deodato, I think, and then
I think so.
and
And Fulci,
yes, and Lucifer. Well, I have a friend
not
was
Lucifer Fulci.
who was in a band. We both know
Lucifer.
Lucifer.
Yeah,
Lucifer, yeah,
did a book that I reviewed.
from Eve Black era, yeah. And
Hugh Black.
Terry M. West is another friend of mine. We You probably know Terry. I mean, he is actually, I got to interview Caroline Munro in London because of not because of Terry, but because of my friend who's Jason Slater, who was doing Diabolic magazine at the time. And I visited him in London, and I got really confused and couldn't find him, and I was on foot, and it's London, and I have this learning disability which messes with your ability to know where you are and stuff. And so I was really discouraged, right? So I went back to my hotel, which is overlooking Hyde Park, and I was just like, shit, man, I so messed up, and I didn't get to meet my maid, and I walked for miles for nothing. So I was about to just, close up shop and go to bed. Get this call, right? It's like, hey, it's J Boy, matey, how are you doing? And it's like, I said, well, I'm sorry I didn't meet you. It's like, that's okay, you're a foreigner. And it's like, okay, so that was his answer to everything. You're a foreigner. And he said, okay, you're going to be meeting with Caroline Munro tomorrow. And I was like, I'm what? It's like, yeah, 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 just buy her some tea. She'll love it. And so the next day, I'm like, I suddenly ears perk up. I'm all like, motivated, like everything, like go, oh wow, I like totally mobilized, And so the next day, I get up bright and early, take the and also the subway, the underground route was mythic as well, because I started at Paddington Station, and I grew up with, we're talking about animals, Paddington Bear. I mean, Ronaldo, the world's smallest circus bear, is basically a dark Paddington, and so I'm like, Paddington Station. It's like, oh my God, I probably lived through Paddington Bear. And then we take the Paddington Underground to Baker Street to meet with none other than Hammer Films icon Caroline Munro, who's the world's sweetest person.
Uh-huh.
She
Yeah, I've
comes,
never met her, but
she comes in. She was literally pushing a pram, of course, that sets off my Monty Python. And I'm thinking, holy shit, there she is. And she's like, I was like, wow, Caroline is really, amazing to meet you. She says, lovely to meet you. Should we have some tea? It was just like that. It was just so like a dream come true. And then she took me back to her place, and she was like, you ever heard of the Teletubbies? And I was like, what's a Teletubby? And she's like, oh, you'll love it. It's Teletubby. And I was like, what fucking acid nightmare is this? I mean, it was just like, it just, I was like, Caroline, I don't really understand them. What are they? They're these Zen
Teletubbies are evil. Uh,
babies from another planet, and they've got TVs in their stomach. And she said, no, they're lovely. They're great. And I said, oh, this is never going to work in the States. I mean, maybe in England, but she said, no, no, they're great. Well, the next week, they came on US TV as well. I was like, interesting. What
yeah.
now? So I was wrong about Teletubbies, but this is just far afield. I don't know. We were talking about possums, started out talking about possums, talking about cryptids, and oh,
And now Teletubbies.
right. There was actually one of my favorite things that I worked on is called Makami. It was like I was doing some, I don't know how I discovered this, but there was I started reading about or hearing about, there's this species of very small white wolf that lived in the sort of mountains outside of Tokyo, and there then these mountains, this very volcanic region is shaped by metamorphic lava flows, and so it hardened and it creates this surreal Lovecraftian like cosmic dread landscape, right? Where everything is just like non-Euclidean geometry and shit, and it harbors this unique flora and fauna, and one of the species that was thought to have disappeared in I think the 1930s or earlier was this a form of very, very small wolf. Now, this also, the same species was kind of worshipped by Shinto. People followed the Shinto religion, the sort of animist religion of Japan, which I think actually may predate Buddhism. And there's all of these shrines to these wolves, and they were supposed to be protectors against things like specific things like theft and fire. Now, over and over again, there's these reports that these small white wolves were seen. So they hadn't died out. They were not extinct. But meanwhile, this entire mythology and a religion had grown up around them. And I thought, what if they were like, what if there was this ancient war between like these demons and these sort of, demon sheep. That's almost said sheep shifters. That would be interesting, but
Shapeshifters. That's the concept.
right? So chupacabras, but the demon shapeshifters and these crypto wolves, which are also shapeshifters, and they were, and this actually the name of the magical wolves is Makami. That's the actual name. And so I thought, what if these were kind of almost, what if I wrote a manga, like a short story, a manga, with a lot of meta elements, because the two main characters, they're like a lesbian couple, but they also have a comic book that they inspire, and then they they interact with their avatars, and they have a completely separate existence in fandom. It's like I wanted to write the whole novel, but I got sidelined on other things.
Yeah.
What's your favorite project that you haven't done but really, really want to do?
Um, well, um, aside from the hamster book of the
Mhm.
Planet Widow and everything, I think one thing that I've been wanting to do for a while that I've been trying to wrap my head around is a project called The Down Wardens, which is going to be a novel. It's always
Wow.
meant to be a novel, The Down Wardens, and I it was going to be kind of an offshoot of The Ragman, which not too long ago, several years ago, I wanted to redo The Ragman, and I had a friend, author of mine, Terry Horns,
Mhm.
uh, who I published several times. I came to him with the project. Um, has a lot to do with dreams, and ragdolls that are likenesses of the people that they come after. They can't kill them because they'll be killing themselves.
Oh, wow.
Um, and uh, and I wrote the Ragman in about 1989 or something. It was supposed
Hmm.
to be kind of a follow up to Prey Serpent's Prey. But I didn't feel like redoing it, so I went to Terry and I told him, "How about if I give you the manuscript and you rework it and kind of make it your own. So
Yeah.
that's been out now for a little
Nice.
while. It's called The Ragman. Terry Horns, inspired by Nicholas Grabowski's original novel.
Nice.
And I thought the Down Wardens was going to have something to do with that, but I wasn't quite sure. Even my website since about 2001
Mhm.
has been downwarden.com.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Eventually, I really wanted to kind of do something called the Down Wardens, and I was never quite sure. And it turns out that because of my experience um, last over the last holidays and stuff in the hospital for 3 weeks, and I almost died of sepsis. I
I'm
just
sorry.
things happened with my
Wow.
with Black Bedsheet Books last October, where I put all my eggs in one basket, so to speak. All of my authors, all 200 of them, and everything was published through KDP.
Oh,
And then
wow.
KDP found something a few years ago that I did that was wrong, or something. Apparently, they were very vague about it, but they just shut me down completely.
Shit.
And I didn't know what to do about it. So I started trying to brainstorm, trying to figure things out, and in the process, I just kept drinking and drinking and drinking
Yeah.
until the point that my large intestine exploded, and I had to go to the hospital.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had this. I thought that I wasn't in the hospital. I thought that they hired a family to kidnap me and keep me in my garage and turn my house into a hospital. I actually thought this.
Yeah.
It was a big, it turned out to be a spiritual journey.
Wow.
Even halfway through my lying in bed in the hospital, the doctor would come to me every morning saying, "Okay, what's your name, Nicholas Grabowski?
Right.
Um, where are you right now?" "I'm at
Yeah.
home."
Right.
"You're in the hospital." "No, I'm not. I'm at home. You guys took
Right.
over." I
Wow.
really believed that up until the last week I was there.
Wow.
Um, but I, that whole like really weird journey with hallucinations and everything,
Yeah.
I kind of figured when I got out, you know what? That's the Down Wardens.
Yeah.
I'm going to make that the Down Wardens. My whole experience, all of my hallucinations and everything, I'm going to put together in a book and call it the Downwards. I got downwarden.com, downwarden this and that, and my
Nice.
email address, downwarden.
Yeah.
So it kind of came to life that way. So that, in answer to your question,
Yeah.
it's something I didn't know I would do. I
Right.
wasn't sure about it, but this bingo, I got to write about this stuff. Everybody's telling me you got to write about that.
Wow.
And it'll probably have to do with Grancy's death too,
Yeah.
and so forth. So it's going to be like probably the most important work of fiction based on a true story that I've ever written.
Wow.
And
That's
I'm going to start that. I got to get a few more
yeah.
things out of the way first, but
Yeah.
probably by the end of summer, I I will have well started it. I have to do it the old-fashioned way, like I've
Right.
always done with all of my stuff.
Yeah.
Sit down, drink, smoke some pot,
Sure.
have a notepad and a pen,
Yeah.
and just sit in my back patio and just write it all freehand first, and
Wow.
uh, then type it up, edit it, and so the downwards. That's the big thing. Right now, I'm working on a new collection
Hmm.
of some stories that were in magazines and some new ones
Wow.
before I get to the downwards. But I'm almost done with that. And so the downwards, yeah, and it's going to
That
be about that whole trippy.
that sounds
I just can't believe it. I've always
really fun.
I mean, I used to drop acid and everything back in the
Yeah.
day. I used to experiment, do all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy, crazy stuff, but I never entirely lost my head.
Right.
I did some crazy things like in LA, driving down the 91 freeway, totally lit on
Wow.
acid, where
Wow.
the whole, all the lanes merged into one for me.
Wow.
I can't, I don't recommend that for anyone.
Note
I
to
can't believe
self.
that I got through that.
Yeah.
So no matter how bonkers I was in the head, I was always like, people would always say, "Oh, really? I can't believe that you sound like you're almost sober to me,
Yeah.
except for maybe the booze from your breath."
Yeah.
But I've always kept a level head.
Yeah.
This time around in the hospital, though, I just At one point, I thought I was being held hostage in a garage, and I was
Right.
back.
Yeah.
And by that same family, this kid that had like Halloween face paint through
Wow.
the bottom half of his face was all like black face paint and stuff. So I guess those are gonna. His family is gonna be the
Yeah.
Billy Dead Gordon. I don't know, but
Right. Yeah.
I was convinced so many times. Even after when I came home, I asked Francie
Yeah.
several times, "Did you?" Well, when I first came home, I said, "Did you fix the garage door?"
Yeah.
Because I thought that at one point I was home and I used the scissors to cut the wires for the garage.
Yeah.
No, it never happened. You were in the hospital the whole time.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's going to
Yeah.
be something.
You know that Nicholas, that kind of makes me think of like one of my favorite writers, and not so much stylistically, but conceptually, Philip K. Dick, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right. I mean, love and as it makes me think of A Scanner Darkly. It's one of my all-time favorite books, and I thought the Richard Linklater adaptation was really, really good. And
Oh, the movie that
the
was filmed with
it was
Robert Downey Jr. and a
Robert Downey
fantastic
Jr.
cast, and it was
Yeah.
all like filmed almost like a cartoon, but not.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
actually drew on the film. I mean,
yeah.
it was like, yeah, painted on the film. And but the whole idea of, you know, sort of these 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 stoners are kind of tweaking out, and they're all paranoid that, whatever, people are going to break into their house, and so they set up all the security cameras and stuff, and then they kind of and then they come home and they see that they broke into their own house, and a lot of the stuff was actually real. I mean, that's like things that, Philip and his tweaker buddies were, had these theories that like you could extract cocaine from solar cane or whatever from an anesthetic for sunburn. And so they actually, most of it is true. And I asked my friend Paul and Salmon, who worked with Philip K. Dick and actually wrote, Future Noir, the making of Blade Runner, about this whole episode where he was like, he was convinced that he was in the 50, you know, AD, and we were living in the Roman era, and we were, and he was, possessed by the spirit of Ezekiel, basically, and the Holy Spirit had come onto him, has inspired, a lot of his fiction. And I said, so Paul, you knew Phil, like, was this for real? And he said, well, I remember it like this. He had just been to the dentist and he had a lot of ether. And he came back from the dentist and he was talking about this visitation. And I was like, oh, that's how it happened. But there, at the same time, there were things like he and Arkram did incredible graphic adaptation of this one episode, right? Where he had these kind of insights which were paranormal, and you wouldn't be able to have access to this information by, any rational means. Where, for instance, he learned that his son had an inguinal hernia and needed immediately to be rushed to the emergency room or he would die. And it was a fact. And he ascribed this to the angel that had, whatever. So nobody knows, but I mean, like like Eye in the Sky was, I think he'd been tweaking out on Dexedrine or something for 5 days, writing for like by the word for these magazine, short stories. And then he staggers out and he sees this giant eyeball up there and he's going, holy shit, man. Checking this? Do you see the no? Um, and that of course inspired Eye in the Sky. And so like he was like, the fascinating thing about Dick was he's like both highly paranoid, highly on drugs most of the time, and uncanny things were really happening in his life as well. So he was living in Berkeley in the 1960s, which is where I mean, my family is from the Bay Area, and I was actually born when I was like, you know, we lived in Berkeley across the street from People's Park, right? And so like Ronald Reagan was sending the National Guard out and they were tear bombing, tear gassing people and there was giant riots and the anti-war movement. We were literally across the street. It's even more fascinating. I kind of completely lost the thread here, but it's
Right.
really interesting because there's so many like kind of simul synchronicities in my life. And one of my best friends is a woman named Julia, not Julia Vinaigrette, but Jan Steckel. Jan Steckel is a retired pediatrician. She was trained at, she has a degree in English literature from Harvard Radcliffe. Then she went to Yale University to get her medical degree. And she's also a bisexual and disability rights activist. This is her. This is her. And this
Oh,
is she was mentored by this woman named Julia Vinaigrette, also known as the Bubble Lady of Berkeley. So she's very famous for, she would have these the sort of like the little bubble, the bubble bottles and blowing bubbles at the police or something like that, the Bubble Lady. And she was like a street poet, and she would she would just create these books of poetry and just sell them on the streets of Berkeley. And, so she was like a true underground American original. And her sister, um, sister Deborah Vinaigrette, did this painting of Jan. So that's my lovely friend Jan Steckel. This is her,
ah,
and that's her.
that's
So I really like. Also, my great grandfather was a historian named Herbert Eugene Bolton. He founded the Bancroft Library at UC Berkeley, and it contains the the archives of Julia Vinaigrette, the Bubble Lady. So it's all kind of ties together, in some ways. I've just discovered that, like Hunter Thompson says in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, that you like about the 60s, you can kind of strike sparks anywhere. And it isn't just applicable to the 1960s. I mean, I think as writers, we can take any subject and we could connect. Maybe we could do this. Like try, okay, give me two words, just two
two
words,
words. Two
just
words.
two separate
Anywhere.
words. Yeah, like two separate, like nouns, maybe nouns.
Um, um, okay, let's see. Well, with all the words I know, I have to pick two of
Yeah.
them. What about um, uh, I'm trying to kind of be creative. What about sunshine aorta?
Sunshine aorta. Okay, so sunshine, I think of acid, orange sunshine, and then I think Sunshine of Your Love by Cream. And then it's getting near dawn. The lights, I'm Christopher Walken. It's getting near dawn. The lights shining through on you. um, and your heart's exploding with joy. You've got an aortic aneurysm after you drop some orange sunshine. But there's more to the story than meets the eye. Nicholas.
um, what? Like what?
You don't
What?
have to do this, but I was just thinking maybe, it's a little something out of the box. Like we could, you know, use this as a sort of, what do you call it, discovery. We're like a writing, like we're going to write a flash fiction.
Oh,
And so, okay, so sunshine and then aorta.
Sunshine Aorta.
The Sunshine
That
Aorta.
actually that came off the top of my head, but it goes back to the Teletubbies. Only instead of a baby in the sun, it's a aorta in the sun.
Aorta in the sun. So, okay, so I'm seeing an eye in the sky because I was just thinking
An
of
eye in the sky.
Philip K. Dick, right? Sunshine, aorta, and eye. And this works the better the less you think about it. So you got a sun in the eye, which is in the sky, and aorta is a what? A large vessel.
Yeah, something like part of the human heart or any organ.
Right.
Um,
It's a
or
heart. So what happens when you have an eye that doesn't have a heart in it? You have a, but it's still shining, but there's no heart. I
well, eyes don't have hearts, but eyes wouldn't exist or wouldn't
uh,
function properly without
Not
one.
heart.
For true.
Right. True. Um, okay. Say you were watching a TV show and all of a sudden this giant eyeball comes on and it's not a scheduled program. Who's behind the eye?
Me,
You are.
I'm behind the eye.
Holy
That
shit.
reminds me of it kind of reminds me of I'm known for having like big Halloween events that
Mhm.
attract the whole neighborhood and the other people. They actually
Yeah,
drive to be here. And one of the props was a old fashioned TV set,
nice.
and I would have like just nothing else but a black and white eye, kind of one eye blinking and looking around and blinking and everything. And that I have always loved that prop. I think
Yeah.
I don't have the TV anymore, but I have TVs. But I think I have that that GIF image
Mhm.
somewhere in my computer that I could
Yeah.
easily. But that usually always freaked people out. That just one eye looking at everybody and blinking. It went through a whole loop, and I would play it the whole night.
I love it. I love it. What if it was a whole family living in your TV? Like it was just like, and they didn't know they were inside a TV. They were just,
Well, there's a lot of complications to that. Is their environment restricted to the set, or can
right,
they go out into the world and the camera follows them in that
right.
TV? So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Could
I'd like
happen.
to think that they weren't just trapped in that one like living room set like a sitcom,
Right.
but they would, kind of get out in the world and then the camera can follow them. Everything. I always wanted in the '80s. It kind of reminds me of I was flirting around with doing my own movies, and there's one that's on YouTube from '84, I think, called Muffin Man.
Yeah.
And I want to redo it, and it's so grainy, and a little of it is kind of hard to see because it's old. And I just recently I tried to even use AI at any means necessary
Right.
to bring clarity to it, and I just can't.
Wow.
But back then, though, I had this idea of making a movie of a guy that has a video camera for a head
Nice.
so that he records everything that he experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
And then when Blair Witch Project came out, I thought,
Yeah.
oh, they stole my idea, kind of. They didn't.
Yeah.
But from the camera's point of view, the whole movie. And they now that's become a trend. But that reminds me of that, though. I forgot where I'm going with that.
Yeah,
But
that's okay.
uh, but yeah, I forgot what it was called.
The
Oh well.
yeah,
Um,
that so how did you wind up working with Wes Craven?
oh, it's really simple. Didn't really work with him at all.
Oh,
I
okay.
just because of Halloween 4, I was kind of searching around to do more novelizations.
Hmm.
And I loved Shocker when it came out. It's a funky movie.
That's great.
And that, among some other stuff, I kind of found out how to contact the studios themselves.
Mhm.
And with Shocker, I thought surely there's got to be a Shocker too. I contacted New Line. I ended up talking several times over the phone with, I forgot his name. I have it down somewhere in my files.
Mhm.
Actually, the contract in my files somewhere, with Wes Craven's personal assistant.
Wow.
And he said, "Well, what do you got? There is no Shocker 2. If you have ideas, make something. We'll look at it." And
Yeah.
so that got me to actually really think about. I had to watch Shocker again several times, and
Wow.
the idea popped in my head about making an adversary for him that can sounds hokey now, but of a guy that's related somehow I think or something to Horace Pinker that he gets um, he gets blamed for Horace Pinker's crimes, and
Wow.
instead of the electric chair, he gets the gas chamber.
Oh.
So he's able to go into books and emerge out of the books in a gaseous form as a
Oh,
character in
wow.
that books. And
Nice.
at one point, I have like Cujo coming out of a book
Wow, nice.
and stuff, and then they fight towards the end, and it's got all the main characters in it from the original. So I made a treatment for that. I sent it to them, and the guy calls me, and he says, this I really like this. I showed it to Wes. He really likes it. He likes your writing style.
Nice.
And I said, well, can I quote him on that? Sure,
Oh.
do whatever you want. I never talked to Wes Craven
Oh, I
himself,
see.
just his assistant, but I got that blurb
Oh,
from that
nice.
conversation.
Hey, a blurb is a
Uh,
blurb, man.
yeah, yeah, and
Right.
but they said unfortunately he's working on something else. He's not going to do a sequel to Shocker, and it turns out
Yeah.
that what he was getting his feet wet with in the beginning was Scream, and so
Wow.
that turned out that that was his next big thing.
Well, speaking of Scream, another synchronicity. So I was telling you about Nicole Six, right? Well, she did this art exhibit back in it was I don't know, it was like a decade ago or so, and she did a painting where it was sort of like a twist on the whole male gaze thing. It was sort of like whole concept was like, what if it was a hunky dude in a shower who's getting stabbed and stuff. And so then she said that she was surprised that nobody, you know, took that idea and ran with it because she's also a filmmaker and a screenwriter, and she's worked actually with James Woo. She did a whole movie with him, which has not been released. And I guess somebody, when they did Scream Six, they took her idea and the guy in the shower, which is kind of seems kind of obvious that somebody would do it eventually, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I forgot the old adage, but about redoing things only differently. I forgot what it was, but how
yeah.
um, you know, a big guy in a shower getting stabbed instead of a petite woman in a shower.
Yeah, I'm a huge like fan of Brian De Palma.
Oh yeah,
He's
yeah, yeah.
another person I really I love. I'm obsessed with split diopter for some reason. It's just to me, it's sort of like it's just and his use of like the editing, the cinematography, the split screen shots, the music. It's so he's such a consummate master. I've watched, I get a lot of inspiration from watching films. So the pacing and everything. I just, right, and so like I was recently I watch a lot of Tubi stuff and they had where for a while they were hosting um um Snake Eyes, right? Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I
and
remember.
um from
That's a forgotten about movie.
I thought is this it's a master class in cinema. I mean, like I know I adore, his films just in general, but this movie then I was like, okay, it's free, so I'm gonna watch it as many times as I can. And oh my God, so there's a scene what I discovered is much like with Hitchcock, everything if you watch it again, you see everything is visible on screen. But it just you don't realize its significance at the time. Just like Hitchcock would use the MacGuffin, right? There's something that's in plain sight, but you don't understand what it is,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And
Uh-huh.
and yes, he and Cronenberg. So who are your like your favorite all-time go-to directors?
Ooh, that's a lot to ask because
I know.
there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Um, I I really like Cronenberg,
Oh, me too.
and uh, in some ways, because I have an affinity for biopics and things that are based on truth, like Oliver Stone,
Hmm. Yeah.
and um, I mean everybody likes Spielberg, so I don't like to keep going there, but I mean his visuals and stuff, with especially in the early '80s, and Close Encounters and Raiders and ET and stuff like that. Um, it's more directly to my line of um, appealing to all audiences while you know doing his job, having this uniqueness. I think just like I said earlier on about finding your voice, any director can
Yeah.
find his voice. Um, which you can. I love a director, just like a writer or just about anybody creative, um, where you can see their work and not know who they are, but just by seeing their work, you know exactly who did it.
Right.
Clint Eastwood is remarkable
Yeah.
to me as a director
Hmm.
as well. And uh, Chuck Russell, I really liked. He did probably my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie, Nightmare 3, and
Wow.
The Mask, and The Blob
Oh,
remake.
wow.
So Chuck Russell really comes to mind about stuff like that. Um, most of my favorite directors aren't exactly the kind of directors that you'd study in film school, except David Lynch is somebody that you'd study in Cronenberg too, and
Right.
that without saying. Um, um, uh, I'm getting some brain farts
Yeah, that's okay.
with a lot of stuff. I have to mention right off the bat Alfred Hitchcock,
Oh, yeah.
um, and uh, a lot of the ones that are out nowadays, they aren't the kind of influencers as the ones of yesteryear.
Hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of good ones that are out right now that are still doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, eh, you know, Orson Welles with Citizen Kane, there's always something to be said
There's always something to be
about
said.
his work
Right.
too. He's like poor guy. He ended up later on in life being a poor drunk bastard.
Right.
He was brilliant.
Those
He
wine
was
commercials, the
brilliant in
Gala
his.
wine commercials were,
Yeah,
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 those
yeah,
are
yeah.
just
I've seen this.
that's very
But
poignant.
he was a mastermind in his day.
Yeah, he was, and he and John Houseman had the Mercury Theater, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I think it's like, speaking of Houseman, because for the Poppy Bright tribute, I'm it's like I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm publishing Peter Straub, via, the Gauntlet Press. Was it Gauntlet? Yeah, Gauntlet Press edition of Are You Loathsome Tonight, right? Which had an introduction by Peter Straub. And so I'm using that, which was not advertised on the cover. And I don't think that I think it was a, you know, Gauntlet um did a whole bunch of great work, but it was not on the cover. I mean, I was like, why not? It was and I had this, I actually have this copy of Poppy's book for years. And I bought it in whatever, whenever it came out, what, early 2000s or something. And I just had it around, and it's signed by Peter Straub, Caitlin R. Kiernan, and Poppy Z. Bright, Billy Martin. And I was at one point I was thinking of like selling it for charity auction stuff. But I'm so glad I didn't, because I'm looking at it, it's like, wait a minute. This has this has, all these classic stories in it, and it's got Peter Straub, and the afterword is by Caitlin R. Kiernan. And I was like, since you know, I planned this book to help Billy Martin and Gray Anatoly Cross, for the last, I don't know, when I started this idea, I think that Billy put something on Facebook about, that they were struggling, financially, or having a lot of health issues and concerns. And so I was like, well, I got to do something for Billy, right? And Gray. So I thought, and there's so much, I mean, so many people, um, came to me and said, what can I do? What can I do to help, right? Lauren Soares, and David Now Wilson, they wrote original stories for me. And anyway, so Peter Straub, right? So Peter Straub and Ghost Story, and oh yeah, so John Houseman, right? Ghost Story, and he was in the Fog as well. So I think people,
Wasn't he in those older commercials? Like
yeah,
they make the money the old-fashioned way.
fashioned way.
Got it.
We add it, yes. And so I love John Houseman, but I read his biography, for like I used to I love biographies. I love anything, and I'll read anybody, I'm fascinated by people's, just and I got to work on, with Tom Sullivan, you know, on his one of his memoirs. And I was just really fascinated by how people come to be whatever they are. And a lot of people, who don't know, that they don't realize that John Houseman had decades and decades and decades. He had all these careers, and he worked with Orson Welles, and he did all these things long, long before, but people like John Carpenter, using him in The Fog, for example, right? And The Lighthouse off Spivey Point, then they just think, oh, that's the old guy in The Fog, or whatever. They don't realize the lineage. And I think what's beautiful about people like Carpenter is that using kind of these actors like the guy was th- uh, he was in a lot of old, like, these 1960s westerns, like the spaghetti westerns, um something Lee Van, is it Lee Van Cleef, right?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. And so using these actors who are kind of like strongly associated with these kind of iconic roles, I think it's something that Carpenter as well, and he made what in the Mouth of Madness, which is very extremely Lovecraftian, even though ostensibly about a sort of a Stephen King type of character, but it's really H.P. Lovecraft, right? And as well as oh, we were talking about not Lucio
Carpenter
Fulci.
is another favorite director of mine
Who?
too. Carpenter, John Carpenter.
John Carpenter,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like I said even earlier too, he when he's good, he's great.
Yeah.
It had some misses and some things, but I mean, In the Mouth of Madness really proved his longevity since
Yeah.
uh, since '78, was it, with Halloween? Yeah, there's a couple of others, and I keep brain farting. An obvious one that I really liked. I can't. I keep thinking Alan Silvestri, but he's his composer for many movies. The guy that directed Back to the Future, Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot his name.
Right.
Oh, for Pete's sake! And also the guy that he passed away. But he directed Reanimator and Bride of
Oh yeah, that's Stuart Gordon, right?
Stuart
Stuart
Gordon.
Gordon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah,
There
yeah.
was at the 1999, was it 19, I think it was 1999. So we are talking about the Blair Witch Project earlier, and
Yeah.
also about Lucifer Fulci, our mutual friend Lucifer Fulci. And what was like, so it was the Fangoria convention in Pasadena. I was living in Pasadena, and the same time as Craig Spector, right? And
Oh! You mentioned Craig Spector. Just
yeah,
a second. Craig Spector was one of the co-hosts of my fiance's show.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
That
cannot
was
believe that because Skip and Spector. I I, uh, I I really loved their splatterpunk
me too.
novellas and
Yeah,
novels.
I'm a huge. I think I have a signed copy of. Was it?
I came so close at getting them together on Francie's show, so close because
Oh man.
both John and Craig were both on it, not at the same time though. And I would talk to them and talk to them about it, and one of them would say, "Well, yeah, if the other wants to, I might be into it,"
Yeah,
and then the other one would say, "Well, if the other one wants to, I might be into it."
right.
And when I would put them against a brick wall or in a corner and stuff, they wouldn't commit.
Oh yeah. Well,
So
there was a
that's
lot
how
of
that's.
there was a lot of
I don't know how they are nowadays.
weird drama. I don't think it's much better. I think well, eh, I'm not going to talk about it on the air, um but yeah, just say Poppy Seabright. Okay, so there's yeah, so this was like actually okay, it's just signed by both of them separately.
Oh, Skip and Bright.
Skip Inspector, I'm sorry. Skip
Oh, Skip
Inspector,
and
yeah.
Spec.
Yeah. And this is just because
Oh, that's what book is that?
this is the light at the end.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's their
Yeah.
first big one.
And this is okay, I just grabbed a bunch of random shit. This is Dr. Flesh, the chat book, which was inspired by Cafe Flesh and Dr. Caligari, both by Jerry Stahl, the author of Permanent Midnight. I'm a huge fan of his. And this is Fucked Up Fairy Tales, Volume 2, which is the cover by Bill Plimpton,
Okay.
who also blurbed it. So this is my book, um, illustrated by Bill Plimpton. How many people can say that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just this is random ass shit. Um, because I have too many things and a limited space. This was a collection of, I want to talk about music too. Is you're a musician. This was a compilation anthology from Meteor Records. It's called And Back to Earth Again. And this one, I got to share liner note space with Wino from
Yeah.
St. Vitus, right? How badass is that, right? So it starts out with Wino, and
Oh,
it's like a couple, and then it's got contributors from High Bias, Decibel Magazine, and then me, Metal Maniacs. And
Oh, cool.
I thank you. And I tell the story about how I dropped some designer acid in the 90s. And I was tripping balls for 4 days straight. And, and also I had a copy the, of Ulysses by James Joyce. And there was a little pocket in the, thank God you understand what I'm talking about. Many people will be like, you took dangerous drugs, and yes. And so there was like a little pocket that opened up in Ulysses. It was sort of a portal to another dimension, and it had a kind of like the streamer from like the words were sort of like the book of um the book of names, is basically like I was trying to read it and it was scrolling like Star Wars, like that. And then I turn the page and it says the hidden hand. And I'm like, wait a minute, what is the hidden hand? You know, and and then when I was I've actually interviewed winos several times. It's just also very, very interesting story about Saint Vitus. But and I said, and he had a band called The Hidden Hand. I was like, you know, what would be the odds if that came from Ulysses? He said it does. And I
Hmm.
said, no fucking way, dude. So I was tripping my balls off on this designer acid for 4 days straight. And, you know, there's something that, pointed my attention to the phrase the hidden hand in Ulysses. It's like, yeah. And I was like, this is really cosmic because James Joyce writing in the 1920s couldn't have possibly known about, you know, this phenomena that would, you know, occur, lysergic acid diethylamide and its various tweaks, you know, like, and you have all these writers and, musicians and journalists and, kind of convening together with Ulysses, this text, you know, amazing. Well, the, St. Vitus, I don't know if you're a fan or not, but
Um, Vaguely.
okay, vaguely.
Hey,
I mean, I think they're really awesome. They had okay, so I was living in Torrance, California, and near the Pacific and near Redondo Beach. And I was working for actually the same secretarial firm that where Tom Sullivan and Betty White were also clients, right? So that's how I got to work with Tom Sullivan and Betty White. And so our courier was this crazy Japanese Irish guy. And he would come in and he was like freaky. And he was saying, hey, you're into metal. And I was like, hells yeah. And he said, I work with, because he also worked with this, I don't know, maybe a stockroom guy or whatever. He had lots of different jobs. And he said, yeah, I work with this guy, who's in a metal band. I was like, who? It's like Armando Acosta from St. Vitus. I was like, holy shit, really? He said, yeah, they're gonna go on tour. They're gonna, it's like they're doing a whatever reunion tour. And I was like, no fucking way, dude. And he said, way. And I was like, can you hook me up with an interview? He said, I'll see what I can do, And then he comes back the next day. It's like, yeah, man. So Armando, rest in peace, has agreed to speak with you. Um, the guy, Dave Chandler, their guitarist, who looks like, so Armando looked like Cheech Marin, uncannily like Cheech Marin, and they all looked like the Freak Brothers, the fabulous furry Freak Brothers from the comic books, the Gilbert Shelton and Paul Mavrides comics. They looked exactly like they stepped out of these comic books, which I'm also a huge fan of those, right? And so it's like, okay, so where does this guy work, Armando? He says he works at this titty bar, in like and it's like there's this unincorporated area so between like Redondo Beach and Torrance, and then there was this whole sort of strip that was like no man's land, right? And they had this titty bar that would constantly change, I'm sorry, Gentlemen's Club, but it would change ownership and they would change the facade. But you go inside and it was sort of like something out of like, you know, Douglas Adams, because it was like the the last titty bar at the end of the universe. And the dancers were not, it was not like Hustler or something. It was like real sad. They were really sad. They were not top tier. Um, and their security guard was Armando Acosta from St. Vitus, you know, and,
Oh,
and so and so I go through, I go out the door. I say, "Where's Armando?" And he's like, "Well, he's outside. He's our security guy." I was like, "Holy shit!" Dave Chandler was their bartender. So I go out there, and there's Armando, and he's got a optical yellow security jacket. And it's super nice. And all the strippers were sort of like, "Hey, why are you talking to him?" I said, "Well, he's a genuine legend. He's a rock and roll icon." And they said, "Yeah, well, what about us?" And it was like, "I just got 5 months of recovery." She slurred, like, I'm in recovery, so why don't you talk to me?" I was like, my name is Dawn, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so, you know, but it was so funny is, because it turns out not only did members of St. Vitus, the core members of St. Vitus work at this, this like very, very downscale titty bar, but they stripped to St. Vitus songs. Have you ever heard of St. Vitus? Like their songs are so fucking depressing. There's like, "I've got to stop drinking because I'm dying inside," and it's just like, it's like they make, Black Sabbath seem like, Mary Poppins. I mean, they're just so
yeah.
like grim. And you've ever seen the video for Shake Your Blood by Probot with Lemmy, and it's got Wino, who is their guitarist and singer and frontman on guitar, except he doesn't play on the actual song.
Huh.
And it's just wild because it's got the Suicide Girls, it's got Lemmy, it's got Wino, and you're like, damn, this is a hot song, but it's just got Wino. They stuck Wino in there. And anyway, as a music fan, so we were going to talk about your music, and you shared some of your stuff. I thought it was great. It was very unique. And talk about your music.
Yeah. Geesh. Well, like I said earlier, I grew up in church and I was a preacher out of high school. And even though I've been like writing secretly, mostly horror stuff since the third grade, and I started Pray Serpents Pray in high school in my high school math class because I was bored. Uh, I had a huge church life. My parents steeplechased a lot.
Oh,
So it was like, yeah, hard to like stay with one church. But I always was fascinated by music, and back in those days, I was kind of halfway convinced that as a Christian, um, you have to mostly listen to Christian music.
yeah.
And I would go to Christian concerts and stuff. And And there's some bands from back in the day, and I'm talking about the mid to early '80s that I still like Steve Taylor, stuff like that, the Res Band, and but
Yeah.
I was in that scene and into that. I bought all the records and that kind of influenced me a lot, especially Keith Green, which was he was a musical evangelist pretty much.
Oh, wow.
He was very strict, but he practically influenced every other Christian musician that was ever out there. And he was a piano player, and so he kind of and he was very melodic and very passionate about his music and stuff, even though it was all like Jesus and to the point that looking back it's shoving Jesus down your throat. But I was really inspired by his style, and so I wanted to learn the piano because of him.
Hmm.
And I would go out to like especially like well churches that I belonged to. They would like let me go almost any time during the day and practice on their piano. Or like junior colleges, I would go to their piano rooms and practice
Hmm.
and stuff. And I kind of learned how to write music. I would go to the minister of music at a certain church and say, did I write this right? And you circle things and go, well, this needs to be this. And
Hmm.
so I learned through that. And I found myself, um, sometimes preaching, doing a lot of music,
Yeah.
uh, playing the piano, and on Sunday service, it's like, okay, Nicholas Grabowsky, and I would come up and in front of thousands of people, play the piano and sing
Wow.
something, usually something that I've written myself, or like something like canned music. Like for some reason back then, I was back in the PTL, praise the Lord, days in Southern California
Uh-huh.
and Melodyland Christian Center and places like that, um, where I would learn how to perform and get comfortable in front of an audience. And Crescent Baptist Church in Anaheim, they had me be the lead singer for a musical that toured several states. I met
Oh,
Eagle
wow.
Eagles family in Montana because of that, and I got them saved.
Oh, nice.
But and I was really kind of passionate about leading people to Christ because at the time I was convinced that was the end thing.
Yeah.
What I believe nowadays is kind of the same, but a lot different. Far no judgmentalism like I did back then.
Right.
It's like, okay, if you have any other frame of thought, you're wrong. But
Wow.
but I was inspired to do music, and it started out as I wanted to be a Christian rock artist. I even some of the even Lisa Welchel from the Facts of Life
Oh,
came
wow.
out with a Christian record, and so I went to her producers with my stuff, and they said no. But a majority of back in the day, that time, I did my music live in front of people,
Right.
and people really loved it. But I went through things. A lot of churches got judgmental on my case, especially this girl that I was dating, uh, who was psycho, and that kind of tarnished their view about me. Like, is that true? Is this not true?
Oh, wow.
Odd to do with a girl. So I ended up breaking away, and I got pissed off at church in general, and I pretty much stopped going ever since.
Yeah.
Um, but the music kind of thing stayed on, and I started doing more of like Weird Al type stuff, or like
Interesting.
stuff about women, woe is me type stuff.
Wow.
And then I hung out a lot with a lot of musicians that when I was technically homeless, got kicked out of my apartment, ended up at this place called Marty's House in Anaheim, hung out at the Doll Hut, which is what I hear now. It's a legendary place. Hung out with members of Christian Death, the
Yeah.
Adolescents, Berlin,
Yeah, we're
uh,
we're talking about like
uh, you know,
yeah, Christian death. Yeah.
bands like that, the Mentors,
Wow,
the
yeah.
singer of the Mentors, El Duce.
Right.
He would defecate in people's living rooms and steal my King Cobra beers.
I hate that.
and stuff. He wasn't a pleasant person. And there was even one point where he was talking to all of us in the kitchen saying that he got hired to kill Kurt Cobain.
Right.
And a week later, Kurt Cobain
Was
died.
died.
And El Duce in conspiracy theorist circles is always mentioned with Kurt Cobain's death. But I was there, and he talked
Right.
about it, and it hadn't even happened yet.
Did
So go
you
figure. I don't know. I'm not saying,
right, no,
uh,
yeah,
but
did you like, so
huh,
what years were this? Because
yeah. I remember Rick Agnew.
yeah,
Used
Rick, we're talking about
He'd
Rick
open
Agnew,
up
yeah.
the garage door where I was living. He lived there too. He lived in the garage. I lived on the couch.
Wow.
And he would like open up the garage door, bring his guitar out, electric guitar, and just play in the street.
Yeah.
And and I would go to like rehearsals and gigs and places. And my problem always was I was a musician too. I played the piano. I was a rock vocalist along the lines of maybe John Bon Jovi and Meatloaf, a very operatic.
Right,
Not
right,
like
right,
that anymore because of my years of smoking,
right.
along those lines. And they never gave me the time of day. But they
Wow.
did, oh, you're the horror writer. That's what you do. You don't do what we do. And,
Right.
one time I went to it was a big stage, a big bar. I forgot where, but it was in Anaheim somewhere. To see a friend of mine play in his band,
Yeah.
and he stopped the band during a song just to point at me at my seat, going "Halloween 4" and everything. I forgot his name, but yeah. So I still did music. People would come over, watch me play the piano, and sing some of my original songs and stuff. And over the course of time, because of life, I kind of forgot about it. But this time around, after I almost died at the hospital, that was one of the things I was thinking about resurrecting, and I
Yeah.
certainly did. So I went through all of my old material and everything, got it all published in a like 100-page songbook that's out now called um, "Songs I Wrote in the '80s."
Wow.
It has all of the songs, all the sheet music for everything
Nice. Nice.
and stuff. And then I just started experimenting with recording and
Nice.
a little bit of AI stuff to try to make demos. This is
Sure.
how it's supposed to sound. And you heard one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, I was really impressed.
And so I'm on that road now. And I'm thinking that especially the song that you heard, I Do Music Too, which talks about everything I just talked about
Right, right, right.
as a horror writer. And that's something that I could actually sing at conventions to promote my horror writing work.
I think that's
Um,
brilliant.
that's something that nobody else has done,
I
and
don't
that
think
I can
so.
like get out there and do that. I want to hire some local musicians
Yeah.
and do some takes with some of these songs and put out a CD officially with the songbook. I just created Black Bedsheet Records.
Right.
That's what the CD is going to be under that.
Nice.
And then whatever I do after that, or if I do anybody else, any other local bands, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Um, and I really like that because when I get into it, I'm really passionate about it, and I really do want to get my voice out there and my
Yeah.
work out there. Maybe write songs for other people.
Nice. Yeah.
So
I can see that.
that's basically where I'm at right now with the music thing. And
Cool
I
beans.
try to practice. I have a little studio inside the house with a piano and synthesizer and amplifiers and things and stuff. So yeah, I have to get back into. I'm not as good as I used to be
Yeah.
when it comes to piano playing. And I can sing when I really want to. And I have a couple of things on YouTube too, where I put together and edited a video for my fiance who passed away. But at the time,
Yeah.
I put it all together. It's In Excess as I Need You Tonight. That's out on YouTube.
I love that
And
song. Yeah.
me
Wow.
singing I'm 18 by Alice Cooper, which is
Yeah.
I always did a great job doing that, and that's on YouTube.
Huge fan of Alice
Yeah,
Cooper, man.
Alice
Yeah.
Cooper is one of my musical idols.
Right.
And
Okay.
when I talk religion to people, I always
Yeah.
tell them, look at me as an Alice Cooper Christian.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I love
Okay.
horror and all that stuff,
Yeah.
but
The
I
coop.
believe in the basics about my,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so yeah, I mean, and I hope to keep doing more music and keep
Yeah.
on this. It's like juggling between music and writing and publishing.
Right. I think that's great. We were talking about, Craig Spector and Skip and Spector, and they started
Oh,
out.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think Skip had an album back in 1972, and then Craig went to Berklee School of Music. He's graduated from Berkeley, and I remember like when I met Craig in what 19 the early middle 90s, I think 94, and he had a whole like he and Skip had just kind of had hit the skids, but there was a whole album of as a soundtrack to Animals, which I don't think has ever been released.
Hmm.
And he played it for me. Oh my God, it was so cool, man. And I think that, you know, it's I love the soundtrack to The Bridge. I think that's brilliant too. It's really like there's some of the songs are like Hall and Oates or something, and some of them are like Ministry. There's like a range of their styles. Also, Skip has had a number of bands. I think he's had like Mumbo Brain, and he had something um more recently as a new band that he's been playing. But I mean, they're like the next level. I mean, musically, they're really amazing. And of course, R.C. Matheson is also a musician, and I don't think Scow is, but they're
When we were messaging each other back and forth the other week, you
yeah,
mentioned Mark Castle is a musician too.
yeah,
And I
More
got to
Castle, yeah,
what anything he's done with that. But yeah, Skip and Spector, I think that they even played together at some point when they were together writing.
right,
I did hear some of Craig Spector's stuff that he let us listen to when he was a co-host of Francine Films.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'm coming across more and more writers that turned out to be musicians as well,
right.
which is really neat. Uh,
It's really fantastic, and it's like
Great
so.
to be multifaceted
It
too.
really is. So and there's all these connections like in my life. I don't know how it happens, but it's just, I guess, being born on Halloween and kind of drawn to the dark side and listening to bands like Black Sabbath growing up, and then like when I moved to LA, I was kind of course, I wanted to meet people, and I found out that Craig Spector lived in Pasadena where I was living, and it was like, okay, so that, I spent a lot of time with him, and then he introduced me to Krista Faust, who I introduced to Thomas Roche, and then I got her the gig with New Line Cinema, right? And she did like Snakes on a Plane, and but so yeah, Krista was married to David Scow, who wrote The Crow with John Shirley, right? Who's also writes for
Yeah,
has
I remember. I
he's a
talked to
musician,
Drunk
yeah.
Scout a couple of times. He went
Yeah,
down drunk at a at a convention bar,
yeah,
and I got drunk with him a little bit. And then but David's a great guy.
yeah. He's fantastic. And it's like but it's like talking about so Shirley wrote a story for me because I did the Black Sabbath tribute, Hand of Doom. And so he wrote, there's all original stories. Had like Anna Taborska, um, what's her name? Running Wild, Lisa Diane Kastner, Paul M. Salmon, who's also a musician and great friend of mine. And and I didn't get Dave Scow, but I did get like tons of folks. Rossi Lockhart wrote, it's just an amazing, amazing compilation. I'm redoing it because I've got new authors, because I'm bringing out as well. Christy Nogle, you wrote me an original piece. Lucifer Fulci wrote me a piece. Original. It's all original poetry and short stories, and it's just amazing. It's for charity. It's for actually. This is and this is Children of the Night Incorporated, which was the charity organization is founded by little plug for Children of the Night. Dr. Lois Lee um, founded this organization in 1979. It's to help um, children and young people who've been, you know, forced into prostitution and pornography. And she's a sociologist, a trained sociologist, has a PhD in sociology. Also, she's an attorney, right? And she's worked with, Homeland Security, the FBI, and she's at other world governments. And so how does this relate to Black Sabbath? Well, because Dio worked with her, right? He even did some concerts to benefit Children of the Night. The song Runaway Children, right? That's for Children of the Night. And I think it was on Killing the Dragon. And so Rock and Roll Children is also about that. And so, this is a letter that was sent to me by Dr. Lee. You see lower, it's the
Ah, yeah,
left-hand corner, right?
yeah, yeah,
Isn't that
yeah.
amazing? So I was inspired
Right.
when I was doing Hand of Dune. I thought, it's something special. It's Black Sabbath. People have a lot of strong feelings about this band. It's more than just a band. It's sort of memories. It's your lifetime, you know. Um, and they've always had a very strong moral message and a very ethical message, which is surprising considering some people think they're satanic. They're really the opposite. And so,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? It's like,
I was back in church back in the early '80s when backwards masking was a big thing.
right,
Churches were like pointing to Black Sabbath and playing
right.
and all that about all this nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I mean, you've even got a song about God, like, was it like After Forever, which is warning people you gotta, you know, believe in God or you're and it's like the song Black Sabbath itself, right? It's like it's warning people about Satan. It's not saying yay Satan. It's like, um, you know, could this be the end, my friend? Satan's coming right round the bend, and it's like it's not pro Satan. It's like run, Satan's
Yeah,
coming, run. This is not pro Satan group. And anyway, so I thought I got to do something special. It was like, what better thing than also at the time I was friends with Carrie Crum, the founder of a little band called The Runaways. And we even wrote some songs together, which is still blows my mind, right? And initially she had like wanted to participate in this anthology. So she wrote 19,000 words of Children of the Grave, which he unfortunately had to pull out of the anthology. But she kind of got it started, and and it was to me it was very special and meaningful because of her history with Rodney Bingenheimer and Kim Fowley and the abuse that she suffered and the early history of the Runaways. And so I thought, what if I reached out to Dr. Lee herself, right? Because I interviewed Dio and two times actually, and the last time I talked to him, he'd mentioned working with Children of the Night. So one thing led to another. I reached out to Dr. Lee. We talked for an hour, and she said, "I'm in," and the rest is history. We even got it into the hands of Black Sabbath. So, like Tony Iommi has literally read the book. I don't know what he thinks of it, but I can say that I've been read by Tony Iommi. So,
ah,
isn't that like amazing? Like, so what do you I'm sorry, I'm just like all over the place here, but
yeah,
but but Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, the Doom hippies and kind of got a new collection, you know, called Twilight of the Doom Hippies, which I'm working on. So you mentioned the Down Warden, right? And so I think I didn't eat lunch yet, so maybe wrap this up a little bit. So quickly, how can people get in touch with you, your socials, um, any like words of advice for, you know, um, writers who, starting out about the craft, about you know, um, like if you had, I did this with Tim Wagner. I said, I gave him, maybe we'll try this out on you. So I said, okay, you're a character named Tim Wagner who's doing a retreat for, for writers, for horror writers, and you're being pursued by Jason or Freddy, or Michael Myers. You have 5 minutes to live. What essential truths about writing horror do you want to convey to your students before you die? So Nicholas Grabowski is running this workshop in the woods now.
So in that scenario, I'm being like chased or influenced by one of these horror icons. Like,
You're about to die, but you have just like 5 minutes to deliver yourself of the most important, you know, writing advice for aspiring horror writers you will ever give, because you're going to die at the hands of Jason.
well, in that scenario, I would probably not run from any of them, but want to talk to them.
Oh, okay.
But I, um, well, when it comes to that, any advice to horror writers or advice about horror writing in general, specifically, um, is well, don't be delusional about it just because you've written a horror book or are writing one doesn't mean that you're the cat's meow. It's a long road to finding your voice and to perfecting yourself. You have to be your own critic. You have to take advice and criticism, and you have to do it. Most important thing is you have to do it. If I had a nickel for every wannabe writer or a writer that's done a little bit so far, for them is it just because you've written a book doesn't mean that you've got it made. You have to really pay attention to your audience. You have to pay attention to your craft. You have to. It's like a painting. Even only you're painting a picture with words.
Yeah,
Uh, so you have to design it just right. You have to go back through it and say, is this exactly what I want to convey? It's like once you see it perfectly in your head,
yeah,
um, from beginning to end and the whole 9 yards, you have to, and this is where the art comes in,
yeah,
is conveying exactly what you see on paper so that people can see it the way that you do,
right.
and get out of it what you do.
Yeah,
Like if you're passionate about it, then make them passionate about it through the art of
art.
your writing,
Yes.
and that's the most important thing. And in that scenario, if I got Jason's or Freddy's attention or whatnot, or Michael Myers, they would probably, if they're literate, take notes and then they'd kill me.
Oh, well,
Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe they'd go, oh, well, okay, we'll learn from that.
well,
If
I,
you're okay with me, I'm okay with you.
you
I don't
actually
know.
you actually introduced another twist which I hadn't considered, but my original I came up with a scenario for Tim Wagner but it was sort of like you're giving this advice to your, your writer workshop students in the woods, and but not to, Jason or whoever. But I think
Right.
you've just introduced another twist in the story. So there's a couple of things I wrote down because I've been meaning to ask you, and this really jogged my memory, Nicholas. One of them was you've talked a lot in this podcast about finding your voice, and you said that really you didn't find your voice for a long time. What was that process like?
A lot of trial and error. Um, a lot of it was I was writing to convey a story, but I didn't interject things that were uniquely me, and I wasn't as learned about the craft as I became over time.
Yeah,
One thing I thought I finished The Everborn in about 1995.
yeah,
I worked on it for a handful of years, and even at parties, get-togethers, things or restaurants, I would use napkins to write it, and like what's her name that did Harry Potter,
oh
write
yeah,
on
yeah,
her,
yeah. J.K. Rowling. Yeah,
and then I would bring it home to my computer, my
right.
desk, and then I would type it out and flesh it out better. But
Yeah,
one thing that I learned in '95 when I thought I finished it, I sent it to Zebra Books,
yeah.
and they didn't send me a form rejection letter. They
Okay,
sent me a well thought out, like 2-page letter about what needs to be changed on it.
cool.
And I thought about that.
Yeah.
And then I started from square one and started writing it all over again, basically.
Wow.
So it took me 12 years to write to it.
Wow.
And in that process, I found my voice because I found out not just how to write a story to convey to people, and it's a story. I found out how to inject things that are uniquely me into it,
Yeah.
how to talk like I said about like Fred Gwynn's role in
Right.
Pet Cemetery, the way that he talked, and is to talk like that. Stephen King does the same thing. He's known for it. Talk matter of factly,
Right. Right. Right.
inject your humor and things that are uniquely you in telling the story.
Yeah.
And so then I learned how to write better, almost to the point that I can almost write closing my eyes.
Wow.
But that's the point that you have to get before you get to a certain point to make people pay attention and
Yeah.
differentiate you from other writers and the whole 9 yards. That's very important to
Yeah.
learn that. And the only way that you could really learn that is over the process of time,
Yes.
fleshing things out with your story, seeing it in your head,
Right.
applying the artwork in order to put it on paper
Yeah.
so that you can convey what's exactly in your head to show people that.
Right.
So that those are very important things, and then, like I said, it's a learning process too. It's
Yes.
not doesn't happen overnight.
Right. So when you talk about craft, I kind of circled that because I think I'm missing something. It's not your fault. It's sort of like I'm trying to figure it out myself because I know I spent years and years and years. I'd religiously read Writer's Digest. I'd religiously read, um, you know, Straub, of course, is a god. Matheson, Ira Levin, all these, and then Ramsey Campbell, of course, absolute
Yeah,
icon. Um, and I think somewhat, to a certain extent, you kind of absorb, people who you have affinity for. Like Ramsey is famous for his kind of like it's like an acid nightmare. There's a
yeah,
reason for that too. But but I think craft means something different to different people. Um, what do you see as the the place of like reading as far as learning craft?
reading has a lot to do with it. Uh, Kind of separate from finding your voice, in my opinion. But reading, the more you read, the better it seems like you get as a writer. But early on in the early days, I found myself, I read way more than I do now just because a lot of my time is spent reading um, things that people send to me as a
Right.
publisher. And that
Right.
takes time. But back in the day, though, I found myself kind of, when I was writing back then, kind of reflecting the styles of the people that I read. Like there's a lot of like Stephen King's voice in some of my early stuff
Hmm.
because he's writes things so matter of factly, like the old man telling a story, kind of the drunk old man telling a story.
Right. Which is always fun.
And so
Yeah.
I found myself realizing that I was adapting my vision that I was trying to put on paper to sound like other people.
Right.
And that's part of the process in developing your own craft. It's kind of separating from that. But then that's a good thing initially because that was part of the learning process.
Yeah.
So, but reading other people's work, saturating yourself with other people's work, that's a very important part because as far as I'm concerned, you see um, how it's supposed to be done,
Yeah.
and you adapt that to yourself.
Right.
So I mean, if all you read are is Mary Had a Little Lamb, and that's
Right.
all that you know, then you're gonna start writing shit like Mary Had a Little Lamb,
Right.
basic. So it's just like anything in life,
Yeah.
where it's a learning process. It
Right.
develops your own skills and your own
Right.
outlook on life and how you deal with people, how you deal with yourself. So it's just like anything else, really. Is the older you get, the better you get because of experience
Yeah.
and learning from other people and everything. So, like I said, I mean, it takes time. It's a long, involved process to find your voice and learn your craft and do whatever it takes to actually be a, a good writer,
Yeah.
or
Right.
good at whatever else you do. If
Yeah.
you're a janitor, you can apply the same things. You
Exactly.
have mentors. You have to learn your craft, the whole
Exactly.
nine,
Exactly.
everything
Exactly. Yeah.
about it, in order to be a damn good janitor. The
Yeah.
same
Right.
with anything else and with writing.
Yeah. This is another thing where I think that big, like I especially admire, of course, I think, you know, anybody who doesn't appreciate Mort Castle in this business has got to be like just like pretty dumb, but the people like him, Gary Brownbeck, Tim Wagner, they're teachers as well, and they're have generations of you know knowledge, and they're accumulated. I mean, if you got those four guys in a room, right? I mean, just the wisdom, really. But I keep circling, this idea of craft because it seems to be sort of a magical, like, I won't say an essence, but it's sort of like something we talk about a lot, but defining it is a bit of a challenge. So, how would you define craft? I mean, like if, for example, like we are talking about the janitor example, yeah, you need to know how to push a broom. You need to know how to be efficient, right? You have a massive facility to manage, and you got to do it right. Nicole Six is a caterer, and she is a floor captain. So she does works with, like for the Emmys and others such. So that's really heavy responsibility. And so I think any job I've always thought that working is noble. And I found so craft, what is it? Wait, what's a craft,
It's what you do.
right?
Is the craft. If you're a writer, that's your craft. If you're a janitor, that's your craft. If you're an auto mechanic, that's your craft. If people ask you what is your craft, it would be the main thing that you do.
Yeah,
It's very simple, and doing the best that you can doing it.
right.
That
But
that's the craft. It's not without knowing your craft, which is what we're talking about writing. It becomes mechanical.
right.
But
I mean, there's
if it's
like,
your craft and
yeah,
you're doing it, then that's your, what kind of craft do you do? Well, I'm a writer.
right. I'm a writer. But there's nuts and bolts, there's like mechanics. And I always thought that like you can learn the mechanics, but you can't teach people. Like I'm a compositionist. I mean, I'm a certified, you know, compositionist. But I was found that you can teach people mechanics and just dumb shit like sentence structure, whatever. And I have an ability as an editor to look at, you know, convoluted prose, and I just you know, like that, bam, and then bam, and that's very, articulate of me. But, a craft is something that maybe when people say, "Oh, you got to learn your craft," I guess that's what I'm saying. So, like, a craft it could be one meaning of the word is what do you do? Well, I'm a auto mechanic, I'm a set designer. I design clothes, or I'm a scientist, or I work at you know, wherever you work. And but that's it's sort of a job designation. But what is craft as a, you know what I mean? Like, what is craft? I
Well,
guess,
you know what, and you talking about it a little more, it gets my gears turning.
yeah,
Instead of just a profession, a craft is taking your profession serious.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think that that's what it is because it's still a craft, but you want to make it by definition a craft. You have to take it seriously and know all the ropes.
right. Okay.
And that therein, that's pretty much the definition. uh,
Yeah.
Here's something. Alexa, define the word craft.
Nice.
As a noun, craft is usually defined as an art, trade, or occupation requiring special skill, especially manual skill. As a verb, craft is usually defined as to make or manufacture an object, objects, product, etc., with skill and careful attention to detail. For more, ask me to give you more definitions for craft.
No, that's all right. But yeah, you couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, it's something you do. It is it's a knowing the ropes. So you said knowing the ropes. Now, what are some of the myths that maybe younger writers might absorb about the writing, the task of writing, that you would want to disabuse them of before they got seriously headed down the wrong path?
Well, I think first thing that comes to mind is um, especially starting out or a little down the road or whatever, when you get a big head about it. Uh, when you get first published and you become a little bit self-absorbed and think that you've got it made or think that you're the shit,
Hmm.
uh, when in fact that's far from the truth usually. I mean, even if you just write one thing, somebody comes along, makes a movie out of it. Still, you're still a youngin when it
Yeah.
comes to stuff like that. Anyway, you just got lucky. Like me with Halloween 4, and I've been writing all my life, but I just got published that year. Quit my job, and all of that, and I still was at the beginning of the process professionally. Even though I got Halloween 4, even though Pray Serpents Pray, the
Yeah.
first novel I ever wrote, got published by a big time publisher in New York. And I didn't really get a big head as like, oh, look at me. I wasn't like that, but
Right.
I did think that I had it made where in fact I had so long
Yeah.
to, from there. And
Yeah.
I got lucky. Prairie Serpent's Prey. My back in those days, I also wanted to be an actor, and my acting coach in Los Angeles was Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov in the original
Oh,
Star Trek.
wow.
And so I used to go over to his house, play volleyball with him, and Josh Koenig, his son, who was in Growing Pains. Yeah, Growing Pains. He
Uh-huh.
played Governor.
Wow.
And stuff. I sent gave him. I went to what's the town where he lives near Los Angeles. And I he wasn't home, so I placed a copy of the manuscript, Prey Serpent's Prey, on his doorstep so he could
Hmm.
read it
Yeah.
because I was all excited about being a published author now and stuff.
Right.
He was published by the same publisher with the science fiction book Alice and the Actor Robot.
Wow.
And but I found out later my publisher got back to me and said that Walter called me and said, "How can you publish that? It's so amateurish." Everything that brought me
Ouch.
down a couple of notches too, and I realized that he was telling the truth because it. I mean, it was my first book, yeah,
Yeah.
praise be, but it was still really amateurish.
Yeah.
I hadn't found my voice back then, and I haven't been immersed as much as I would later on with the whole craft of writing, with the whole experience of writing, the whole doing it. Um, but yeah, I'll never forget that. But he was right. I, on the other hand, kind of thought that his book was a little amateurish too. It's kind of. I ended up editing a later version of it myself,
Wow.
but and it was decent. I kept encouraging him through phone conversations and stuff that he's got to write more
Hmm.
and he's got to find his voice because I didn't believe that he found it. The last time I talked to him, which was a while ago too, we used to have phone conversations about that. But yeah, but yeah, but even back then with Halloween 4, which came out the same year Prairie Serpent's Prey came out, I mean, things happened all of a sudden in a big tidal wave and stuff. And like I said, I thought I had it made. I had it so much to learn. So that's really the number one thing is don't think that you've got it made just because you're published or you got a few things out there. It's still a long road.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's a real misconception among first time writers is no, you may not have it made.
Yeah.
Even if somebody gives you $1 million for it and you've got it made financially, you still have a lot of learning and growing to do as a writer.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like I started out, I was writing for like Death Realm magazine and Blood Songs magazine, but I don't know, for some reason I just felt like I wasn't secure about writing fiction or sending out fiction, even though I'd been sending it out for since 85 or 86. I just tried all of the magazines, and I got some really great rejection slips. I mean, I got like, remember Midnight Graffiti? Like I got a full, like,
Um,
handwritten rejection letter from them, right? And then Magazine of Science Fiction and Fantasy, Christian Catherine Rush wrote me a really, really nice, two really, really nice handwritten rejection slips, and I was like, wow, this is cool, man. I mean, and then I sent in the story to Ellen Datlow, and she said, well, this is more science fiction. Check with Gardner, um, forget his last name, Duzwa or did like analog? I think it's um yeah, I think it was analog, but it nothing ever came of that. But the fact in like I think these children today, with their this sense of entitlement that
yeah, yeah,
people have no idea what it was like before there was an internet. And you would send things. I don't want to be the old guy, because I'm not really that old. We're the same age, but people don't. understand when they think, oh, I just want to, feedback on my story, immediately. And you're like, we had to wait months. I mean, sometimes, we never heard back from people, but when we did, if we got anything, like, you could be pretty sure that most of the time you're going to get that self-addressed stamped envelope back. It's not going to have it's not going to be you looking for a thin thing. If it's stuffed, it means that they rejected it and they're just sending back your manuscript with a form. They stuff a form rejection slip into the self-addressed stamped envelope, and that's it. And then you send it
I
out
got
again.
many of those in the early 90s.
Right?
Many of those. I thought I had it made.
Right?
I got rejected with my short stories
Yeah,
over and over again.
over and over again. And there was almost like an honor, right? You would read Writer's Digest and you read about Stephen King, and you read about like all the people who rejected him and who rejected Carrie and said it was like a very depressing science fiction book, and then
Yeah.
until
And then King's wife found it in the garbage.
right,
The
until
rest is history.
yeah, there was, I've actually, speaking of King, I've actually been like, this is one of those freaky, like freak whatever you want to call it, things, where I've actually been published with Joe Hill, not because like I was in an anthology with Joe Hill, but I wrote for Implosion magazine, and which was under the umbrella of the same, publisher and distributor, put out Blood Songs, and they also put out like Blue Blood magazine and all these other, and my Extreme Music magazine, Juggernaut. And we had Dave Barnett, right, was who did who was the fiction editor for Blood Songs as well. And so I retrieved it like this past year. And I was like, holy shit, they've got a story by Joe Hill in there, you know. And but on and this is the contributors, you know, to Implosion magazine. It said at the top, he said, well, Alex S. Johnson is our star and blah, blah, blah. And he's really done all sorts of things. We should really name this the Alex S. Johnson issue, right? And then you look down a ways and you're like, oh, there's a guy, Joe Hill, whatever. And he's done a
Wow.
few things.
Yeah.
He's published a few things. No big deal, right? And it's
Joe Hill
like
always makes me think of who'd have thought that the kid from Creep Show
Creep
was,
Show, Joe
was
King, right?
let alone Stephen King's son,
Son,
and he would go on to write his own books.
write his
Some of
own
which
books.
are made into movies.
Yeah, some of the great, truly, and he's a fantastic, fantastic author.
Yeah.
Like I say, so like style. Okay, that's maybe one last question. So style. So maybe two questions. So style is often contrasted to style and substance. Style over substance. Do you think that they're different?
A little bit.
Okay.
Substance is the meat and bones and meat and potatoes, whatever we call it, of the story that you're writing, but style is the way that you tell it.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I think.
Like Wayne Allen Sally and I tried to write a book together, and I kept saying, Wayne, you're so meat and potatoes. It's like, yep. And it's like, wow, you really are meat and potatoes. I mean, every single thing he writes is just like boom, boom, boom. And that is his talent. But I'm sort of like zipping and zagging all over the place. And I think so. I wrote this book called Final Destination Wipeout, which kind of it was the last book that was going to be published by New Line Cinema Black Flame Books. And then they went underwater, and there's a whole wiki page about it. And so I'd been friends with Wayne for a while, and then we were talking on the phone, and he said, hey, why don't we try to revive Final Destination Wipeout? Which was like about Gothard. I was given this Siamese. It's like Gothic surfer chicks from England who go to Hawaii and then they're picked off by this guy, this sniper, and they're also pursued by death. And it was sort of a mashup between, not my idea, but the New Line Black Flame Books people. It was sort of a mashup between The Craft and Blue Crush. Really, really hard to do. I didn't manage to pull it off, and then they went underwater anyway. So Wayne said, why don't we rewrite it or try to resuscitate it, right? We got going pretty, doing pretty well back and forth. And then I thought, hey, why don't I, this is clever me, right? I thought, why don't I introduce some Lovecraft into the deep old ones? And I think it was like only a week of this back and forth, and Wayne's like, um, nah, this is not working for me. He
Uh,
wanted to take his name off. He said, you can publish it, just take my name off. Because I was really, I thought I was just going great, great guns with the Lovecraft stuff. Because I thought, well, it's water, right? So you can get, but no. Yeah, so style and substance can be worked together. It depends on if you're writing with somebody, right? Who you're writing with. Now, the elusive question of voice, that seems is often presented to people like, okay, finding your voice is somehow like there's like we all know what we're talking about, but it's harder to find that thing. What if if you could summarize like what wisdom you have about that very thing? Is there any way to kind of speed up that voyage of discovery? Or are there any techniques or exercises you can do to discover your voice?
oh, well, yeah. There's not really any set of rules about it, but finding your voice falls along the lines of if you're reading somebody's work and you know that it's that person because of the way that they're writing, that's
Yeah,
your voice. So they could say like, "Oh, that's a Stephen King book." Yeah, and I didn't even know it was Stephen King, but it sounds a lot like him. It turns out it is.
right.
That that element is the voice part
Yeah,
because telling it like you would with your personality and your whatever it is that's uniquely you, that comes out on the page in the process of telling the story.
right.
So that's at least that's my definition of what finding your voice is is writing in such a way that you're writing and people can tell that it's you
Yeah,
because of your personality and your idiosyncrasies and the whole 9 yards. So
yeah.
that's pretty much it. I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, it's like, yeah, I mean, like for years I thought my writing is just too strange for anybody, that there's like it's like very experimental, a lot of metafiction, a lot of just experimentation with language, and I thought nobody's reading it, right? Nobody is interested in, maybe I'm just an abject failure, but over the years I started to hear from people who like major names are like, yeah, we really dig your work, man. And I'm like, really far out, like Anna Tambor, I was like, holy fucking shit, man. It's Anna Tambor, right? You got to respect that name. And so, whatever, like, I thought I was a complete failure because I didn't sound like anybody else. And it turned out that was not a deficit, that I would say
uh,
to anybody listening or, that sometimes, but I think also not knowing can actually be like you were saying, Nicholas, before about how, you know, just because you hit, maybe you're published with a major whatever publisher or you think you've hit it big, that can be a mixed blessing, right? Because
yeah,
you might think, or it depends on how you interpret it. Like if you think, oh, there's nothing more for me to learn, then you failed to take the lesson. But if you think this is aspirational, so I can build on this and um what is like what is of all the people, and you've gotten praise from Clive Barker, which is fantastic. What praise that you've received for your work has been aspirational for you? In other words, you see them and go, I hope I'm that good, or I want to be that person who writes that story that gets the Clive Barker blurb, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Um, I could tell you that I'm a big fan of Barker's work. Even as a director, you were asking me about one of my favorite directors, and I forgot to include him. Hellraiser and Lord of Illusions and
Yeah.
Nightbreed. Think that those are wonderful. Unlike Stephen King, who can't direct. I mean, I mean, he's Stephen King.
Yeah,
He doesn't need to direct.
right.
But uh, um, I don't. I used to really think the world of when somebody important would praise my work. Now it's different.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mean, if somebody like Alice Cooper, I mean, said something, then that would rejuvenate whatever is in me that kind of ho hums praise these days and stuff. It doesn't matter so much. I'm comfortable with myself and my own writing that
Yeah,
I don't necessarily feel like I need that kind of thing, even though I
yeah,
mean, it helps sell a book, but I'm
right.
not looking for it like I used to. But uh, looking back at everything, I think I'm most happy with what Clive Barker said. I even signed with him at Dark Delicacies
Oh,
once,
that's right.
and that's when I first met him face to face, and then we talked on the phone a lot after that.
Yeah.
I would have to like call his secretary. We'd set an appointment. Then around 5 o'clock, it's like, "Ooh, the phone's ringing. That's Clive Barker."
Oh my God.
That great.
Yeah.
And he was always he would always say, "What do you want from me truly?" And I would say, well, hey, a little mentorship,
Yeah.
and uh, and I'll always cherish that blurb that he gave me. It was in a handwritten 2-page letter that he mailed to me,
That's beautiful.
which I have framed on my wall. And DNR Koontz used to give me a lot of advice too.
Yeah.
And he typed up a big long letter for me once, and I have that for him too. Um, but I don't really. When it comes to praise and blurbs and stuff, I seek after that actively for the authors I publish, and
Right.
not really necessarily me anymore.
Right.
Um, uh, and there's a great deal of value in that with people that love your work that you admire or your idols of and
Yeah.
stuff. There's always something great about that. It matters less to me now.
Yeah.
I'm just more into my own work. If you like it, you don't. I'll keep publishing
Right.
or get it published or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, man,
I
uh,
yeah.
I've known over the years a lot of people who name drop, and I was one of them for a while. Like I stopped pretty much talking about the Stephen King blurb that I have because it wasn't anything written. It was something in a hallway at a convention in Anaheim
Right.
about 1992. And it wasn't even a specific. It was like, keep them coming, Nicholas, with the thumbs
Okay.
up. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
use that's on the front cover of the Everbook. I don't use it that much. Even HWA asked me point blankly once, where did you get your Stephen King blurb?
Right.
And I was just honest with them about where it came from. And then they left me alone about it. But Clive Barker's, it was handwritten.
Yeah, that's
mailed directly
amazing.
to me. So I'm
Amazing.
more proud of that.
I love it.
And then even the Wes Craven thing, even if it wasn't directly me
Right.
talking to Wes Craven, him telling me, but it was his assistant telling me what he thought. I thought that that was good enough to
That was good enough.
say something about. But yeah, um, and even to this day, when I go to a convention, there's somebody that I used to idolize. Like this last time around at Sinister Creature Con,
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Wallace was there, the
Oh wow.
director of Halloween 3 and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It with Tim Curry and Fright Night 2 and stuff. I
Yeah.
I made it a point to give him a couple of copies of my books, and if he like gets back to me about them and blurbs me, more power to me.
Exactly.
I those people that I have always admired, for them to say something about me,
Yeah.
that's a great thing. It's still a great thing.
It's just it
I
really
don't
is.
actively
Yeah, I
search
know. I know. I mean, I kind of do, but it's also I don't know. I mean, it's just it's sort of like, some people, as I told like Gary, I'm sorry, my head's I have a brain disease, but Gary Brownback. Okay, Gary
it.
Brownback. Yeah. So, I wrote to him, I said, like, some people collect stamps, some people collect, the skulls of their enemies. I collect blurbs. So, how about it? And he agrees. I'm really incredibly honored, and also like, oh yeah, I got a blurb from Lemmy. I mean, this is just because, my best friend was, his publicist for years, and we were pals for a long, long time. And um, she really loved my book, The Death Jazz, which has, blurb from John Shirley on it. And she kept saying, oh, you send me a copy, sign me a copy to Lemmy. And I was like, no, man. Because I was like, if he doesn't like it, you know, just I would feel like shit. Even,
Uh,
it doesn't really matter if I get, because it's Lemmy, right? I was like, I don't want to know either way. I don't want to know. But then
yeah,
do it, dude. And I was like, okay, I trust you. So, I sent it, signed it. Hey, Lemmy, I love you, man. You're fucking God, and whatever. It was just over the top. It was just real, real, heart from the heart. And then she kept bugging him, and every time I talked to her, I was like, oh no, she's going to bring up the Lemmy thing. And finally she says, hey, guess what? He read it, and I said, oh, what do you say? He says, not bad. I was like, well,
yeah,
not bad. So, okay, so if you kind of read that through, kind of like famous Lemmy understatement, he's British, so that means it could either mean it's shit or it's really not bad. I mean, it's like it's good. It's like it's because he didn't he would say if he hated something, he would say it's shit. He was
right.
famously just like not, but also so I was just like, well, okay, not bad. If you put that in the context of John Shirley, then you've got who is another person who's really, I mean, Blue Oyster Cult, right? I mean, that the whole relationship between Shirley Moorcock, Eric Bloom and Lemmy, right, is like fundamentally mythical, So like, okay, not bad. So sometimes I use it, sometimes not. I just feel like Lemmy is a sort of a, you know, like I'm a little, you know,
Uh,
he's like my mythical, like ancestor. And I just recently read that something like Michael Moorcock was dedicated when like something that at the edge of time the um to Lemmy.
mhm,
Was it the Dancers at the Edge of Time or something like that? It's one of his Elric books.
uh-huh.
So it's really fascinating to me, like all the connections between music and bands like, Oyster Cult and who I adore, and Lemmy inspired
Many horror writers
like Iron Maiden and
are
Joy
directly
Division.
influenced
Yeah.
by their music, the music that they listen to.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
really important. I mean, life experience, music's part of it.
Yeah,
And who
right.
cannot love music? Who cannot love music? And no matter what kind of genre you're into, who cannot love music? Some music influences, especially
Yeah,
writers.
for
That's
real.
why you'll see most writers they quote a song of theirs,
Yeah.
or stuff like that. I gotta like make this short now. We've been at it for
Yeah,
like
that's
3 hours. I
that's
gotta.
cool. Yeah. I kept thinking of
But
like, yeah,
one
go
one
ahead.
thing, and this has nothing to do with the interview really, but one of my favorite all-time musical artists is Tony O'Kay. Have you ever heard of him?
No, I haven't actually.
Oh, Tony O'Kay is the bomb.
Okay,
I'll like probably message you on Facebook with some
cool.
Tony O'Kay songs. But he was one of the original members of Brainport again, 60s guy died in an airplane.
Oh, Leonard Skinner, right?
Glasses,
Oh,
guy, great hits. He was part of the Crickets. Tony O'Kay was
oh,
original part of the Crickets with
Buddy Holly?
Buddy Holly.
Buddy
Yeah,
Holly, yeah.
and then he started. He became solo in the '70s, and I was introduced to his music with the Christian music era in the '80s. But he just did like one Christian type album, but it
Yeah.
didn't mention Jesus or anything. It's a classic now. All of his music is, as a matter of fact, Notes from the Western Civilization in many circles is considered one of the greatest albums of all time.
Nice.
Tony O'Kay with a K period.
Okay. I will
Yeah,
listen to that.
I'll like send you some stuff about him. I'm
Okay.
crazy about him to this day. He and Alice Cooper are my two all-time favorites.
Listen,
Anyway,
I love
I
I
gotta
love
go.
the coop. Yeah, so do I. Okay, so it's been great fun. Really appreciate, the conversation, and I will see you on Facebook.
Yes, certainly. Okay,
Okay.
let me know when this comes out, and I can, tell everybody about it or whatever. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Okay,
All right,
sounds
thanks,
good.
Alex. I'll talk to you
Okay.
later.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Cheers.